Zero Fantasy Online. It was the biggest game in the world, and everyone was obsessed with it. I was at level 998, just 2 steps away from being the first person in history to hit the level cap. I didn't get there by luck. I put in the hours, clicking away until my hands were numb. 200 hours straight without a single break. Even for me, that was pushing it. My room was a mess of energy drink cans and trash, but I didn't care. I just needed to reach the end. I spent my whole life being second best, and I was desperate to finally leave my mark on something. Whether it was school or sports, I never quite made the cut for the top spot. I'd always be the one on the lower podium, watching someone else celebrate the gold. I was tired of being a runner-up. In this game, I was finally going to be number 1. I was face to face with the final boss, the only thing standing between me and my goal. I wasn't scared, I was thrilled. This was the moment I'd been working for. I launched myself into the air for the final strike, ready to carve my name into the history books. But then, my heart gave out. I clutched my chest as a sharp pain ripped through me. Everything started to fade. I couldn't believe it was ending like this. The last thing I saw was the monster's mouth opening wide before my vision went pitch black. The "You died" screen flickered on my monitor while I slumped over in my chair, motionless. I died right there, with the final level up literally inches away from my grasp. I thought that was it, but then I saw the sky. I woke up in the middle of a forest as Alan, feeling more alive than I ever had in my old body. But the peace didn't last long. A red-haired goblin was already tearing through a local villager nearby. It wasn't a game mechanic anymore. The blood and the screams were real. I realized where I was. These were fire goblins from ZFO, and they were slaughtering people in the fields. A farmer tried to fight back with a pickaxe, but he was way out of his league. The goblin was too fast, dodging the heavy tool with ease before closing the distance. A level 7 fire goblin. Even in the game, these things were a nightmare for new players. The poor guy was only level 1. He didn't stand a chance. I could feel the wind on my skin and the weight of my own limbs. This wasn't VR, I was actually here. It clicked. I had been reincarnated into the world of Zero Fantasy Online. I called out the status command, and a holographic window appeared right in front of me. I was level 1 again, with no class selected. I lost everything from my previous life. A bald villager spotted me and started waving frantically, begging for help. He was screaming for his life, desperate for anyone to step in and save them. Seeing an NPC act like a real person was weird, but it proved that the world's rules still applied. In the game's lore, adventurers were the ones meant to fight back against the Demon Lord's army. I told them to wait a second while I picked a job, which probably sounded insane in the middle of a massacre. The bald villager looked at me like I was a lunatic. Being level 1 meant I was basically as useless as they were. He wasn't wrong. Taking on a level 7 goblin at level 1 with a normal class would be suicide. I looked through the options on the screen, searching for something that could flip the script. Then I saw it, the crafter job. In the game, everyone called it a trap class because it was so weak. But things were different now. This wasn't just code anymore. It was reality. If the system worked the way I thought it did, being a crafter wouldn't be a handicap. I reached out and tapped the screen, choosing the one job that would let me build my own path to the top. The system confirmed it. My class was now officially set to crafter. I activated the skill immediately, watching a blue cube of pure data materialize between my palms. A split second later, the data solidified into a sleek, modern assault rifle crackling with energy. I checked the stats. It was an assault rifle 1 with a power level of 35 and a 30-round mag. It worked. The structural understanding mechanic was the perfect loophole for someone with my background. All those years I spent buried in books, aiming to be the sharpest mind in the world, were finally paying off. From simple firearms to the complex engineering of a fighter jet, I knew exactly how these things were put together. The bandana villager and his bald, mustachioed companion nearly lost their minds when they saw the weapon. They couldn't believe I picked the crafter job, which they still considered a useless trap class in this world. I didn't say a word. I just adjusted my grip and moved my finger to the trigger. I pulled it back, and the weapon roared to life, spitting out a hail of lead into the tree line. The fire goblins didn't even have time to react before they were being shredded by a weapon they couldn't comprehend. The 2 farmers stood there with their mouths hanging open, completely frozen by the display of power. I kept my expression cool, though inside, I was feeling pretty good about how well this was going. In a world stuck in the Middle Ages, I could basically manufacture whatever modern tech I wanted. Most people might scoff at it, but for a gamer like me, the crafter job was absolute god tier. The bandana villager was sweating, still trying to process how a level 1 kid just vaporized a level 7 monster. They stared at me in total disbelief, unable to make sense of what just happened. I ignored the questions and manifested more blue energy, telling them it was time to take matters into their own hands. I handed a couple of rifles over to the confused men, who took them with trembling hands. They were terrified but grateful, wondering why I'd just hand over such incredible pieces of gear for free. The bandana villagers started panicking, worried they might accidentally blast each other in the chaos. I told him to relax. I'd already programmed a restriction so the guns wouldn't hurt anything but monsters. To prove my point, I turned my rifle on him and pulled the trigger, sending a burst right into his chest. He braced for impact, but the bullets just bounced off his shirt like harmless pebbles. Seeing that it was safe, the two villagers grew a backbone and started unloading on the remaining goblins. It was a complete slaughter, as the simple farmers mowed down the creatures that had been terrorizing them. Suddenly, a status window popped up. I had already hit level 2 without even breaking a sweat. It was a broken mechanic. Whenever someone used my crafted gear to get a kill, I got a cut of the experience. The bald villager ran over, handing me a glowing red stone as a thank you for saving their lives. It was a fire goblin's magic stone, a rare drop that I recognized immediately from my time in the game. These stones were essentially batteries filled with a monster's power, highly valued by the people here. Most adventurers just sold them to the guild to be converted into energy, but I had a better use in mind. The celebration was cut short when a massive, armored monster stomped onto the field, sending everyone into a panic. I narrowed my eyes, recognizing the threat instantly. A high-level boss class had joined the fight. It was a level 13 goblin knight, towering over the regular minions with a heavy shield and a spiked club. The villagers didn't back down this time. They stepped forward and tried to gun it down, but the bullets just sparked off the knight's massive shield, failing to leave even a single scratch on its armor. The monster just stood there, letting out a low growl, as if the bullets were nothing more than a mild annoyance. The farmers realized their weapons were useless, and froze in terror as the beast stared them down. I grit my teeth, knowing that with my current level, I couldn't craft anything strong enough to take this thing head on. The knight let out a deafening roar and began its charge, ready to crush anything in its path. The villagers shouted for me to run, their voices filled with panic as they fled for their lives. But I wasn't moving. I looked down at the magic stone in my hand, realizing that crafting wasn't just for building, it could be used for upgrades and repairs too. The goblin knight loomed over me, raising its massive shield as it prepared to crush me into the dirt. I wondered if I could take it a step further. If I could use materials to build, why couldn't I consume them to create something far more powerful? I didn't hesitate. I activated my craft skill, watching as blue lightning danced around the magic stone, pulling it into a new blueprint. The data solidified into a massive rocket launcher 1, a heavy-duty weapon with a staggering attack power of 525. I checked the scope, noting that the magic stone had added a special explosive attribute to the weapon. To maximize the impact, I'd configured the design to focus all its power into a single, devastating shot. I pulled the trigger, and a blinding beam of energy erupted from the barrel, streaking toward the monster. A massive explosion rocked the area, completely engulfing the boss in a wall of fire and smoke. A status window flashed before my eyes. I had jumped straight to level 4 from a single kill. As the smoke cleared, the armored beast lay defeated, leaving behind a fresh, glowing magic stone as proof of my achievement. The bandana villager and his partner stared in disbelief, wondering how a weak crafter could one-shot a boss-level monster. I examined the fading blue energy in my palm, noting that weapons powered by magic stones were temporary, breaking once their fuel was spent. The men were desperate for answers, asking if I was some legendary adventurer in disguise from a famous clan. I just shrugged them off, telling them I was exactly what I looked like, a rookie who just happened to know what he was doing. Little did they know, they were witnessing the birth of the world's first and only true crafter. The crafter was the only class capable of putting an end to the darkness that had haunted this world for centuries. The long-lasting war against the Demon Lord's army required a power no one had ever seen before. I leaned down and retrieved the magic stone dropped by the boss, feeling its power hum against my skin. I'd finally cracked the code of this class's mechanics now. Nothing was going to stop my growth. I stared into the distance with renewed resolve. This time, I was going to be the first person in history to reach level 99. Alan's out in the wild testing his crafting, but he's already run into a massive level 20 rock golem. Being level 13, he's at a bit of a disadvantage, but he's got his handgun ready to see what it can do. He didn't really expect to run into something this massive so early into his testing session. He switches over to his assault rifle and starts letting the lead fly. The bullets are just pinging off the golem's rocky skin, barely leaving a scratch on the monster. It's not just tough, the thing actually starts regenerating its damaged parts right in front of him. Alan realizes high defense is one thing, but that healing factor makes it a real pain to deal with. He pulls up the rifle stats, seeing an attack power of 175, which clearly isn't enough for this tank. Time to try out an add-on. He starts a new craft to upgrade his firepower on the fly. He looks at the weapon's interface, specifically the empty slot where a magic stone can be equipped. The rifle gets modified, adding a dedicated slot for power-ups to enhance the base damage. He pulls up his inventory, searching for the right item to give this gun some much-needed kick. He grabs a golem magic stone he looted earlier, hoping it's the answer to his problem. He decides to test how well this fantasy stone integrates with his modern military technology. He jams the glowing orange stone into the gun's new slot, and it locks into place. The whole rifle surges with electrical energy as the new Pierce attribute kicks in. This specifically gives the gun a Pierce V effect, designed to completely ignore physical armor ratings. The golem lets out a roar, still thinking it's the big boss in this fight. Alan takes aim again, looking a lot more confident now that he's got his upgraded gear. The golem charges in for a slam just as the first burst of magically enhanced bullets hits home. This time, the rounds tear through the rock like it's wet paper, shredding the golem's chest wide open. The entire golem shatters into a million pieces in a massive explosion of light and rock fragments. Alan gets the level up notification to level 14 and sighs that was a pretty successful trial run. He notes that while the gun survived, the magic stone is a one-time use item for these specific add-ons. He keeps grinding until he hits level 15, examining another stone he just picked up. A system message pops up showing the villagers he helped are now using his weapons to fight off orcs. He's been busy lately, traveling to different farming villages to distribute his high-tech crafted gear. It's a win-win. He helps keep the locals safe while racking up some easy experience points. Meanwhile, at the massive adventure guild headquarters, things are starting to get tense. The higher-ups are staring at a magic crystal showing a report of an adventurer leveling up at an insane rate. A guild staff member stares at the numbers in a magic mirror, unable to believe the stats. The guys in the back are freaking out, going from level 4 to 15 inches. 4 days is literally unheard of. The name Alan is highlighted, a total unknown who's currently breaking all the guild's records. A girl behind the counter is losing it when she sees his class is listed as a simple crafter. A stern guild official decides to project some familiar recorded footage of Alan's recent battle. The whole room watches as the recording shows Alan absolutely bodying a level 20 rock golem. They're all staring at the strange boxy weapon in his hands, wondering what the hell it even is. They've never seen a physical attacker treat a golem's absolute defense with such little respect. The recording shows the final shot obliterating the golem's head in a spray of sparks and debris. Even though he's only level 15, they calculate his actual firepower is equivalent to a level 50. They catch a glimpse of Alan's cold, focused expression in the playback as he clears the field. The official admits he doesn't get the logic, but Alan is clearly in a class of his own. Back at the guild, the official watches the screen with intense focus, convinced he's finally found the vessel his group needs. He orders a report sent to his master as a crystal ball shows Alan moving on to his next target. Deep in the desert, Alan comes face to face with a massive level 27 sandworm. He knows this boss has low defense, but massive health, making it the perfect choice to test out his latest gear. Since his rocket launcher is limited to one shot, he starts thinking of ways to stack more power into a smaller frame. He pulls out the rock golem magic stone he looted, intending to use it as a high-tier crafting material. He triggers his craft ability, surging magical energy into his standard handgun to begin the upgrade. The gun's base attack power jumps over 1,000, gaining a huge percentage-based damage modifier. But he's not finished yet. He decides to fuse the magic stone directly into the gun as a custom add-on. He clicks the glowing stone into the base of the weapon, watching as the metal starts to hum with new power. The handgun gains the freeze attribute, and its overall attack power nearly hits the 2 to 1,000 mark. He's satisfied with the result, knowing that even if the damage doesn't kill the boss, the ice will freeze it in place. The sandworm lunges forward, but with a body that massive, Alan knows there's zero chance he'll miss. He takes the shot, and a blinding burst of blue muzzle flash lights up the desert. The blast is so cold it flash freezes the entire boss on the spot, leaving a massive, smoking hole in its center. The frozen monster lets out one final crack before its massive body begins to crumble into pieces. Alan's even a bit surprised himself that a handgun could outperform a rocket launcher with the right mods. To him, it's just more evidence that the crafter class is essentially a god-tier job if played correctly. With his testing complete, he decides it's time to head back to town and trade his loot for some gold. He walks into the local adventurer guild branch and heads straight for the exchange counter. He dumps an absolute mountain of high-grade magic stones onto the desk, leaving the receptionist, Melissa, in total shock. When she asks for his name to process the exchange, he tells her simply that it's Alan. She starts to respond, but her voice trails off as a group of armored men start to close in. Suddenly, Alan finds himself surrounded by elite guards, all with their hands on their weapons. The Holy Guardian captain steps forward, informing him that he's being detained under suspicion of a crime. Alan's more annoyed than scared, not understanding what could have possibly triggered this reaction. Before he can even argue the point, several glowing magic chains snake around him and bind his movement. The captain gets right in his face, telling him he's being taken directly to guild headquarters for interrogation. Alan is brought into a high-stakes meeting at the Adventurers Guild headquarters, bound in magical chains while officials watch from a long table. With a flick of their power, the glowing blue restraints suddenly shatter into pieces. The unnamed guild leader adjusts his glasses, apologizing for the rough intro. He admits they were just curious about his insane leveling speed. He leans forward with a smug look, making it clear they won't be letting him go without some answers. Alan just rubs his wrists, looking completely bored by the interrogation as he asks what they actually want. One of the officials loses his cool and slams the table, demanding the secrets behind his gun weapon. Alan tells them bluntly that even if he explained the technology, they wouldn't understand a thing since it doesn't exist in their world. A guy with light brown hair just smirks, calling him a big talker for someone who's just a crafter. He keeps pushing, questioning if the weapon is actually just some useless gimmick. Alan sees right through them, they're just trying to provoke him into giving up the details. Fine, they want a show? He activates his craft skill, summoning a vortex of blue energy and pixelated blocks. An AK-style rifle materializes out of thin air, leaving the smirking official looking absolutely stunned. A status window pops up, showing the rifle's stats scale with Alan's level and boast a 30-round magazine. The officials crowd around the table, unable to believe a weapon could fire 30 rounds in a row, something deemed impossible in their world. Message delivered. Alan turns his back on the group and starts heading for the exit. He makes his intentions clear. He's aiming to be the world's first level 999 and doesn't have a second to waste on them. The leader jumps to his feet, shouting for him to wait. He asks if Alan's ultimate goal is really to take down the Demon King. Alan pauses, mentioning he heard things were looking pretty grim for humanity lately. The official's expression turns serious as he admits that humanity is facing an unprecedented crisis. He points out that an entire major city was completely wiped out just the other day. Alan stays cool, saying he'll deal with that problem eventually, before telling them to make an appointment next time. The official reaches out, desperate to keep him there for just one last thing. He suggests that if Alan really wants to level up efficiently, he absolutely needs to join a clan. He offers to personally introduce him to an elite A-rank clan. But before he can finish, another official cuts in, telling him to stop trying to hog the recruit for himself. He starts pitching his own favorite A-rank clan, bragging about their elite roster and dungeon clearing record. The whole room immediately devolves into a shouting match as everyone starts fighting over which clan Alan should join. Alan just waves them off, tired of the noise and insisting he wants the freedom to move solo. Realizing they can't change his mind, the officials reluctantly back down, telling him to keep them in mind if he ever reconsiders. Alan gives him a casual "see ya" as he walks out the door. The leader watches him go, noting how incredibly elusive the kid is. Back inside, they stare at the rifle on the table, baffled that a level 15 crafter could possibly make something so advanced. The leader decides it's time to call in the country's best blacksmiths to analyze every inch of the thing. Meanwhile, Alan makes his way to the Wolf Mine dungeon, which is already swarming with adventurers. He walks past the groups toward the glowing entrance. Despite the crowd, Alan keeps his head down, focused on getting inside. A green-clad adventurer waves him down, asking if he wants to join their party since they're one person short. But as soon as he sees Alan's level 15 tag, his face turns pale with shock. He immediately chickens out, apologizing and telling Alan to just forget he ever asked. He scurries away, yelling that a level 15 has no business being in a level 25 dungeon. Alan just smirks. He wouldn't even be at this trash area if it wasn't for the massive XP bonus from the level difference modifier. In this world, there's a level difference modifier that makes grinding way more efficient if you take on enemies about 10 levels higher than yourself. But outside the dungeon, a much lower level girl is getting cornered by a group of thugs trying to force her into their party. The creep leading them is Lucas, a level 65 swordsman who's currently busy harassing Emma, a level 20 priest. People standing nearby are just whispering about how Lucas is at it again, forcefully inviting another woman. Lucas just gives a sleazy grin, knowing exactly what he's doing. Emma begs them to stop, insisting she doesn't want to leech off anyone and just wants to find a party near her own level. Lucas doesn't care about her pride. He tells her to just shut up and enjoy the easy levels. His lackeys back him up, looming over the terrified girl. Suddenly, the ground starts glowing with blue electrical energy. A bronze hand suddenly sprouts right out of the dirt, crackling with power. Lucas's face goes from smug to pure terror in less than a second. The bronze hand grabs him, and he ends up flat on his face while his buddies freak out. Alan walks up as if nothing happened, offering a half-hearted apology for the disturbance. He calmly explains that his crafting just misfired. Lucas is left trembling on the ground, struggling to process that a misfire just put him in the dirt. Enraged, Lucas gets back up and threatens to kill him, asking if he has any idea who he's messing with. Alan doesn't even flinch, explaining he was just testing his range and an ass happened to be in the perfect spot for a slip-up. Lucas's eyes are bloodshot with pure rage. He draws his sword, ready to slice Alan into pieces for the humiliation. But then he stops, noticing the level 15 tag floating above the kid's head. He starts laughing hysterically, mocked that a measly level 15 had the guts to pick a fight with a veteran swordsman like him. Deciding it's below his dignity to kill someone that weak, he puts his sword away and says he'll let Alan live for now. Alan just shrugs and walks away, with Emma following close behind. She thanks him for the save, but Alan tells her he didn't exactly do it to be a hero. Lucas calls out to them again, making it clear he's not just letting them walk away that easily. He's got a much more malicious plan in mind. He points toward the dungeon entrance and proposes a contest. He challenges Alan to a time attack, clear of the dungeon. If Lucas wins, he says he's going to beat Alan's face in until there's nothing left. Emma is horrified, pointing out how unfair it is for a level 65 to challenge a level 15. Lucas just licks his lips, adding that his real reward for winning will be taking Emma's body for himself. Without hesitation, Alan just says, "Fine." Emma looks at him like he's lost his mind. He adds that if he wins, he doesn't even really care about getting a reward. Lucas smirks, convinced there isn't even a 1 in a million chance that he'll lose to a small fry. Alan gets close, telling him that even if he beat a loser like Lucas, the reward wouldn't be worth the effort anyway. Lucas snaps, his face darkening as he calls Alan an arrogant idiot who's finally about to learn his place. Alan stands outside the wolf mine, where a crowd of adventurers has gathered near the massive stone entrance of the dungeon. Emma, a priest, is visibly worried. She warns him that a level 15 shouldn't even be here when the recommended level is 25. Alan isn't the least bit concerned. He tells her it's no problem and that he planned on hunting here from the very beginning. As he heads for the portal, a guy with a ponytail watches him with a condescending smirk. This is Lucas, and he mockingly suggests Alan recruit some scrubs to help him out instead of going in alone. Alan doesn't even look back. He just finds it pathetic that a level 65 like Lucas can't function without a whole flock behind him. The insult clearly hits a nerve, leaving Lucas seething in silence. Alan dismisses him with a wave, telling the guy to go ahead and flock together with his buddies if that's what makes him feel safe. Emma isn't letting him go alone though. She rushes forward, insisting on accompanying him into the mine. A holographic party invitation from Emma pops up right in front of Alan's face. He doesn't hesitate to hit the decline button, telling her straight up that he doesn't need her help. But she isn't taking no for an answer. She literally clings to him, crying and begging for a chance to go along. Emma feels responsible for the way things turned out and won't back down. Seeing her determined look, Alan realizes he's not going to win this argument. He gives in with a heavy sigh and finally taps the accept button on the new invitation. Emma is absolutely thrilled to be officially on the team. As they move away, Lucas shouts out that Alan better not let her die. But he and his crew have a much more sinister reason for wanting her alive for later. Inside the dark tunnels of the mine, the atmosphere is heavy, and Emma is already looking a bit on edge. Alan stops to check the record stone. The fastest anyone has ever cleared this place is just over 19 minutes. With a confident smirk, he decides that breaking that record is going to be a breeze. He tells her it's time to go, and they step deeper into the dungeon passage. Shadows start to stir ahead of them as the dungeon's denizens sense their arrival. Level 20 bats, giant caterpillars, and undead warriors start swarming their position from every angle. Emma starts to panic. There's no way the two of them can push through this many high-level enemies at once. Alan remains completely calm. To him, they're all just a bunch of low-level scrubs. He tells Emma to put her staff away, since it's only going to get in the way of what's coming. Since she's in the party, he's going to make her pull her weight and do some fighting too. He activates his crafting ability, and blue energy begins to coalesce in the air. Suddenly, 2 high-powered submachine guns materialize right in her hands. Emma is stunned by the high attack power. Alan explains that they're called guns, weapons that only he can create in this world. He pulls out 2 for himself, looking like he's ready for a full-scale war. The instructions are dead simple. Aim at the enemy and pull the trigger. He opens fire, and a hail of bullets instantly shreds through the first wave of monsters. Emma is floored by the firepower, but Alan tells her to stop standing around and start shooting. She takes aim and lets loose, the bullets tearing a giant caterpillar to pieces. She can barely handle the recoil though. These things have a lot more kick than she expected. Alan doesn't even slow down. He tells her the chit-chat is over, and that they're pushing straight for the boss. Meanwhile, in another part of the wolf mine, Lucas's party is clearing through their own set of monsters. They've already left a trail of bodies behind them. Lucas takes a breath as they finish the area. One of his teammates tells him he was being pretty mean back there, but Lucas doesn't seem to care. His buddy realizes Lucas provoked Alan on purpose, knowing this dungeon spawns an extra boss for anyone challenging it for the first time. Lucas is caught in his lie, and he doesn't even try to hide it anymore. He says that a newbie like Alan shouldn't be wasting their time. In his mind, there's no way the kid even makes it to the boss. Lucas's teammates agree, laughing about how ruthless their leader is. To them, if Alan reaches the boss by some miracle, he'll just end up dead anyway. Lucas is still fuming over how Alan made a fool of him. He's determined to make sure the kid is thoroughly screwed over. Meanwhile, Alan and Emma finally reach the deepest part of the dungeon. Emma agrees, though she seems a bit preoccupied with the timer. Alan can't help but be annoyed. If someone hadn't been so careless and rushed into every trap they saw, like when Emma triggered a giant boulder and had to run for her life, they would have finished this run in half the time if she'd just stayed focused. Still, the experience points are rolling in. Alan's already leveled up 3 times since they stepped foot in here. Emma managed to hit level 21 as well, and she's just glad she's a healer so she can patch herself up. She tells Alan to stop spacing out, or they'll lose the time attack. She's already bouncing toward the boss room. Alan just sighs. He's ready to get this over with quickly. They step through the massive doors, guns drawn, and ready for whatever's inside. The air turns cold as two massive silhouettes materialize from the darkness. A queen werewolf steps into the light, eyes glowing with malice. And right beside her is a king werewolf. Emma is shocked she didn't expect to find two bosses in one room. Then Alan remembers. This dungeon has a first-time exclusive boss event. Emma is not happy he waited until now to mention it. There's no time to argue, as both werewolves pounce on them. They barely manage to dodge the initial pounce, Emma screaming as the claws narrowly miss her. Alan stays analytical. Werewolves are incredibly fast and have high evasion. Basically, they're the worst possible matchup for guns. He tells Emma to lay down some suppressive fire to buy them some time. Emma pulls the triggers and lets loose, her scream nearly as loud as the gunfire. The werewolves are like blurs, weaving between the bullets with terrifying grace. Emma starts to panic when she realizes her shots aren't landing at all. Alan watches them closely. This is getting a bit troublesome now that they've split up to flank them. He takes charge, telling Emma to handle the queen, while he deals with the king. Emma thinks he's crazy, she can't even hit them. The queen werewolf lunges again, teeth bared. Emma can't believe how easily they're dodging every shot she takes. The king werewolf closes the gap on Alan in a flash of speed. It lets out a deafening roar, ready to tear them both to shreds. But Alan's eyes narrow. This is exactly what he expected. He activates his crafting skill one more time. A werewolf lunges through the air, but is jumping straight into a trap. Alan clenches his fist as blue energy surges around him, ordering his craft to activate. A massive steel trap snaps shut on the monster's leg, spraying blood as it bites into the bone. More werewolves are pinned to the stone floor by the glowing blue snares. Emma is completely stunned, shocked that the beasts were stopped so easily. Alan just gives her a calm look, saying he only needed her to buy him a little time. The monsters are totally immobilized, leaving Emma to wonder what kind of insane crafting skill this is. Alan's just glad his test for long-distance crafting worked out as planned. He summons a black handgun into his hand, ready to finish off the sitting ducks. To him, a werewolf that can't move is just another common mob to be cleared out. He stands over the pinned creature, looking cold and indifferent. He points the gun right at its head and tells it goodbye. Once the threat is gone, he leans down to collect the purple mana crystals left behind. Emma comes running over with her own pair of guns, hyped that she took out the Dungeon Queen too. A system screen pops up that cleared the wolf mine in under 10 minutes, setting a brand new all-time record. Alan is already thinking about coming back alone to take the top spot for himself, making Emma call him mean. They step through the blue exit portal to head back outside. A small crowd is waiting at the entrance to thank them for clearing the dungeon. Emma asks about the weapon she's holding, and Alan tells her to feel free to use it. A couple of other adventurers spot him and remember him as the guy who was arguing with someone named Lucas earlier. They think he's just trying to sneak away before he gets caught, totally underestimating what he just did. Alan stops and looks back, casually mentioning that the dungeon is already cleared. The guys just laugh, calling it a transparent lie and telling him to quit acting tough. Alan doesn't bother arguing, and just tells them to go look at the record crystal themselves. They think he's joking, convinced there's no way a low-level guy like him set a record. They mock his level and his trap job class, claiming he couldn't have even met the requirements. One of the guys reaches for the crystal, fully expecting to prove Alan wrong. His face immediately goes pale as he reads the names at the top of the list. There it is, Alan and Emma, with a record-shattering clear time of 9 minutes and 48 seconds. The guy falls flat on his butt in shock, while his buddy wonders how this is even possible. Alan decides to give them a little hint about how he pulled it off. He summons 3 submachine guns, letting them float in front of the stunned adventurers. One of the guys grabs it, completely baffled by the strange weapon. When they see the stats, they lose it. The attack power is way higher than anything they've ever seen. Emma joins in, bragging about how super easy it is to use. It's simple, you just aim at the enemy and pull the trigger. She demonstrates by letting off a burst, sending bullets flying and making the guys dive for cover. One of the guys is sweating buckets, wondering who the hell Alan really is. A crowd starts swarming around them, everyone desperate to get a look at the new gear. Alan is already bored with the attention, deciding it's a waste of time to stick around. As he walks away, he doesn't notice a woman with long silver hair watching him from the crowd. Melissa stares after him with an intense, calculated look. A few minutes later, Lucas and his team finally emerge from the dungeon portal, looking exhausted but satisfied. Lucas stretches his stiff neck, boasting that they were incredibly close to breaking their 50-minute goal. He plops down on the ground with his crew, deciding they should wait around for the cocky rookies to come out, just so they can gloat. His teammates laugh along, joking that if the kids aren't out in an hour, they're probably dead anyway. Someone suddenly calls out to Lucas, cutting through their celebration. A guy in a purple tunic steps up and breaks the news their competition has already left and gone home. Lucas's face darkens, assuming the newbies just tucked tail and ran away because the dungeon was too hard. His friends start laughing at him, thinking Lucas got played and that the rookie's big talk was just a bluff. But the martial artist corrects them. Looking toward the portal and revealing that they didn't run, they actually cleared the whole thing. Lucas is stunned, refusing to believe those two losers could have possibly finished the dungeon faster than his team. The guy doubles down, stating it wasn't just a fast clear, it was a world record that beat everyone else's time. Stunned and angry, Lucas stomps over to the record stone, convinced there's no way it's actually true. He slams his hand against the pillar, shouting that he won't believe a word of it until he sees it with his own eyes. He stares at the glowing screen on the record crystal, and his jaw practically hits the floor. 9 minutes and 48 seconds, a dungeon that took his pro team nearly an hour was cleared in a fraction of that time. The reality of the situation hits him like a truck, and Lucas drops to his knees, his pride completely shattered. He stares blankly at the ground, trembling as he tries to convince himself that it has to be a lie. He lets out a raw, tearful scream of pure frustration that echoes across the dungeon entrance. Somewhere far away, a mysterious figure sits in a high-ceilinged office, shrouded in the shadows of the desk. They look over a dossier on Alan, realizing that the kid's incredible record clear proves he's the real deal. The assassin leader steps out of the darkness, acknowledging that he heard there was a special request for his services. The shadowy man points a finger at Alan's profile, making it very clear who he once dealt with. The assassin takes a good look at the photo, noting that this target looks like he might be quite a handful to take down. A heavy pouch of gold is slammed onto the desk, an upfront payment that promises even more for a successful job. The mysterious client taps his finger on Alan's picture one last time to confirm the hit. The assassin leader stands ready, his eyes cold as he accepts the simple and lethal order to kill him. Emma bows to Alan, thanking him for everything he's done for her. She's moving her base of operations to avoid any retaliation from Lucas, though Alan wonders if she really needs to run. Emma is firm about her choice. She's an adventurer too, and doesn't want to keep leaning on him for help. Alan accepts her decision and tells her to take care of herself out there. She hops off with a cheer, telling him not to let anyone break the record they set at the wolf mine. He watches her go, promising to keep her words in mind. Emma waves one last time, hoping they can cross paths and party up again someday. A system notification pops up confirming the change. Emma has officially left the party. Now, alone in the wasteland, Alan looks at his status window and decides it's time to see what else he can craft at level 24. He focuses his energy, sparks of blue magic swirling around as he visualizes his next project. In a massive flash of light, a full-size battle tank appears in the middle of the desert. The exterior looks perfect, so Alan climbs up the side to check out the hatch. He's impressed to find that the interior cockpit controls have been replicated perfectly. He settles into the seat with a confident look and orders the machine to move forward. The tank sits silent in the sand, and he realizes he forgot one major detail: it needs fuel. He knows the theory behind his ability lets him build almost anything as long as he knows the structure. However, formless substances like gasoline, water, and electricity are the exceptions he can't create. He already expected this hurdle, and has a plan to use the world's natural energy instead. In this game world, magic stones are used to power just about everything. He pulls out a glowing magic stone, knowing it can be converted into general purpose energy. He slots the stone into the tank's power core to test his theory. Alan is betting that his modern crafts should be able to run on magic stones just like any other item. The engine roars to life and the tank barrels forward, kicking up a massive cloud of dust. For a moment, it looks like a total success, and he's ready to roll. But then, the magic stone suddenly shatters into tiny, useless fragments. The power cuts out instantly, and Alan is left stunned by how fast the tank drained the stone. He climbs back out, realizing he doesn't have the high-tier energy required to keep a machine that big running. The tank dissolves into light as he decides he'll need much higher quality stones for a project of that scale. He decides to try something a bit smaller and more efficient this time. He crafts a high-tech drone equipped with voice recognition software. He watches it hover above him, wondering just how long this one will be able to last. He orders the drone to increase its altitude and start recording the surrounding area. The overhead view is sharp and clear, and the energy consumption is finally at an acceptable level. He thinks about how he could probably swap the camera for a gun to use it in combat. He creates a tablet to sync with the drone's feed so he can check out the footage in real time. The camera recorded the landscape even better than he had anticipated. But then, he spots something suspicious and tells the video to stop. On the screen, he sees several figures lurking in the distance, clearly keeping an eye on him. Based on their appearance, he guesses they're related to the punks he tangled with back at the wolf mine. Alan doesn't plan on being a sitting duck, so he grabs a submachine gun and starts running toward them. The hidden group realizes they've been spotted as the target charges straight for their position. They can't believe a low-level player like him managed to sense a group of level 65 assassins. Alan calls out to the group hiding in the rocks, counting exactly 5 people. The lead assassin is caught off guard, but decides they have no choice but to kill him now that they've been spotted. Another assassin looks at Alan's gun, skeptical that such a strange-looking weapon can actually do much. He's convinced that modern-looking tools like that can't deal any real damage to humans in this world. Since Alan is only in his level 20s, The guy thinks this mission will be a breeze. However, their leader tells them to quit being idiots and stay on guard even at low levels. Alan is a high priority target for a reason. Alan isn't in the mood for games and tells them to quit hiding and come out already. The 5 hooded figures reveal themselves, surrounding him from the rocky cliffs. Alan stares them down, demanding to know what their goal is. The lead assassin tells him to drop the attitude and quit glaring. He makes it clear they aren't here for a chat. They've come to dispose of him. Alan quickly analyzes the situation. 5 highly skilled opponents, all specialized in stealth and high-level movement. He thinks to himself that choosing a rapid-fire submachine gun was definitely the right call for this fight. One of the assassins scoffs as he charges, believing the weapon won't even leave a scratch on them. He realizes his mistake the second Alan pulls the trigger, unleashing a hail of lead. The bullets tear through the assassins with brutal efficiency, catching them completely off guard. They don't even have time to scream before the sheer power of the weapon starts shredding their ranks. Within seconds, the ground is littered with their bodies, and Alan stands alone in the middle of the carnage. He looks at the only one left standing, telling him he really should have come up with a better plan. The bleeding assassin is in shock, unable to comprehend how a gun could actually kill human players. Alan explains that he normally keeps a safety restriction on his gear to prevent accidental harm, but as the assassin collapses in terror, it's clear that safety is long gone. He tells the guy that with the restriction turned off, a direct hit is naturally fatal. Alan levels the barrel of his gun right at the man's head. He demands to know why they targeted him, giving the assassin one last chance to talk before he pulls the trigger. The assassin spits back that they're just pros doing a job, and they'll kill anyone if the price is right. Alan is genuinely confused. He hasn't done anything that should have earned him a death warrant from a group of professionals. The man admits he doesn't know the full story, and that Alan might not have done anything wrong at all. He grins and says that there's just a big shot out there who doesn't like how strong Alan is becoming. Alan presses for a name, but the assassin suddenly bites down hard on something hidden in his mouth. He tells Alan he's a professional too, giving one last mocking smile. Blood spills from his lips as the poison takes effect instantly. Alan watches as the man goes limp, realizing he took his own life rather than give up the client. He walks away from the bodies, still baffled that someone would be this afraid of a level 24 player. A woman's voice calls out from the shadows, impressed that he managed to turn the tables on such a veteran squad. Alan narrows his eyes and asks who's there, wondering if there's another assassin waiting in the wings. Melissa steps into the light, claiming she's actually an ally on his side. Melissa makes her pitch, suggesting they team up since it would be a win-win for both of them. Alan isn't interested. He tells her straight up that he doesn't need companions, not now and not ever. He pauses, a quick memory of a certain gunslinger flashing through his mind. Maybe he wasn't always a solo player. Melissa tells him not to be so prickly. She's not going to give up that easily. She drops some bait, mentioning she has a good idea who hired those assassins to come after him. That gets his attention. He looks back, wondering just who exactly is behind the hit. She confirms his identity, noting that he's the one who shattered the speed record for clearing the wolf mine. Alan asks why she doesn't just check his status to confirm, but she points out that he has his settings set to private. He realizes being famous is just one big headache, and starts messing with his menu to change the visibility settings. He pops his status window open and asks her if she can see it now. Melissa's jaw nearly hits the floor. She stares at the screen, unable to believe he's only level 24. She was convinced a guy with his skills would be at least level 80. Finding out he's actually lower level than her is a total shock. Alan shrugs it off and asks to see her status in return. It's only fair after he showed her his. Melissa pulls up her own screen, revealing she's a level 50 sorcerer. He gets right to the point, asking who hired the assassins to take him out. She plays hard to get, telling him she'd love to spill the beans, but information like that isn't free. She tells him to help her out first, then she'll give him everything he wants to know. He's skeptical and asks what kind of help she could possibly need from him. She points toward the sky at a massive structure floating high above the clouds. It's the Crystal Sky Castle, a legendary dungeon that's supposed to be cleared by level 50 parties. Melissa explains that it's far from a normal dungeon. Even for their level bracket, it's considered top-tier difficulty. The monster spawns are completely random, making it impossible for anyone to prepare for what's coming. The place is littered with traps that can wipe out even the most seasoned high-level adventurers in a heartbeat. And, at the very bottom lies the Crystal Dragon, a boss beast that's in a completely different league than anything else. Alan asks if she's looking for a carry to clear the whole place. She gets specific. She wants the boss's rare drop, the Jade Dragon Orb, in exchange for the intel on the assassins. Alan realizes that for someone at her level, that orb is a top-tier material she probably can't get on her own. Melissa asks if he's going to take the deal, or if he's too scared. She assumes there's no way a level 24 can actually pull this off, and starts to backtrack. But Alan doesn't hesitate for a second. He accepts the deal immediately, leaving her stunned. She asks if he was even listening, reiterating that the recommended level is 50 and it's incredibly dangerous. Alan tells her he knows all that, and honestly, he probably knows more about the place than she does. He thinks back to his time playing ZFO. He cleared this exact dungeon countless times back then. Joining up with her wasn't the plan, but he can make it work. His main goal is to wipe out whoever is targeting him, so he can get back to leveling up without any distractions. Melissa offers a handshake, saying she's looking forward to their partnership. Alan just turns and starts walking, telling her it's time to head out now that everything's settled. She's a little annoyed by his attitude, but she follows along anyway. She points out two major problems with their plan, starting with the fact that the castle is way up in the sky. To get there, they have to submit an application to the kingdom and go through a formal teleportation rite. Alan recalls that in the game, you just had to talk to a specific NPC and they'd teleport you instantly. He wonders if that's what she means, but she stops him, saying that he doesn't actually meet the requirements for the rite. The level cap is 40. She's well above it at 50, but Alan is still stuck at 24, meaning he's officially locked out. Alan asks the obvious question. If there's a level cap for the teleportation rite, why'd she even bother inviting him? Melissa admits she never would have asked if she knew he was such a low level. He brushes off the insult and asks for the second reason she wanted a full team. She points out that the two of them alone just won't cut it for a dungeon of this scale. She starts listing the roles they're missing, starting with a heavy-duty tank to soak up all the damage. Then they'd need a dedicated healer to handle the recovery and keep everyone buffed, and to top it off, a high DPS attacker to actually finish the job. She explains that as a sorcerer, her magic is great for crowds, but she can't deal enough focused damage to take down a boss by herself. Alan agrees that hitting level 40 is their top priority, and Melissa suggests they take their time over the next few months to grind it out. But she's clearly in a rush, even if she tries to hide it. Alan catches on immediately and asks why she's so desperate to hurry. Alan drops a bombshell. He's not just grinding to 40, he's planning to be the first person in this world to hit level 99. Melissa tells him it's great to have big dreams, but for now, they're stuck until he hits 40 because there's no other way to reach the dungeon. Alan thinks to himself that the level restriction is a massive pain, but he's already looking for a workaround. He stares up at the castle floating miles above them. It's way too high for even the strongest flight magic to reach. Suddenly, a light bulb goes off. He's got an idea that might just solve their transportation problem. He tells her they can get to the castle without the rite and starts glowing with a blue light as he activates his crafting skill. He gets to work, telling her he'll explain the details later as the magical energy starts taking shape. He finishes his creation, a small, 4-rotored device. Melissa is baffled, asking if it runs on magic stones. He identifies it as a drone and gives it a simple command: fly straight up to the castle. Melissa watches in awe as the little machine follows his orders perfectly, realizing it's technology that doesn't exist in their world. Alan isn't celebrating yet. He's more worried about whether the castle has some kind of defensive barrier that'll fry his drone. The drone makes it to the base of the floating island without a scratch, proving the path is clear. Melissa is floored. She never thought it was actually possible to reach the castle without using the kingdom's official teleportation. She assumes he's going to build a giant version for them to ride on and suggests they head back to town to find a party to fill the empty seats. Alan shuts that idea down instantly, telling her that just the two of them is more than enough. Melissa is confused, wondering how he expects to handle the combat roles without any other party members. He goes a step further and says he could probably even do the whole thing alone if he really wanted to. He also clarifies that he has no intention of building a giant drone for them to fly in on. He explains the physics of it. The bigger the drone, the worse the fuel efficiency, and it would definitely crash before they even got close. Melissa's left hanging and asks what their actual plan is for getting up there then. Alan gets a focused look in his eyes, revealing that they're going to use a brand new energy source that's completely different from magic stones. Alan mentions a new energy source, catching Melissa off guard. He pauses for a second, letting the suspense build as he prepares to reveal his plan. He points straight at her, declaring that she's going to be the battery for his next invention. Alan breaks down how a sorcerer's elemental magic can be harnessed as a raw power source. He activates his craft skill, digital blocks of light swirling around his hands. A massive pile of fabric drops onto the sand, and Alan explains they're going to fly their way to the target in a hot air balloon. He tells her to hop in so they can give the new ride a test drive. Melissa is confused about her role until Alan tells her she needs to use wind magic to inflate the thing. She lets loose a gust of wind, and the green energy starts filling up the balloon. The fabric swells up as they both stand ready in the wicker basket. Once it's upright, Alan explains that the air inside needs to be heated up to get them off the ground. He suggests she use Flame Hand, since it's the most mana-efficient way to keep them airborne. Melissa ignites her hand, flames licking around her fingers. She holds the fire up toward the opening of the balloon, fueling the lift. The ground suddenly drops away, as the balloon starts drifting up into the sky. Alan casually mentions that if she stops the fire, they'll fall to their deaths, definitely something he should have said earlier. As they float over the jagged mountains, Melissa realizes Alan's crazy plans might actually work. She starts to believe that, with his gadgets, clearing this dungeon might be possible. They arrive at the massive gates of the Crystal Sky Castle. Melissa is breathing hard from the mana drain, but she tries to play it cool, while Alan thanks her for the help. Inside, the place is already crawling with other adventuring parties. Since it's an open dungeon, anyone can clear it, and the competition is already fierce. Alan starts running, knowing they'll be kicked out and forced to restart if another group beats them to the boss. He ignores the groups fighting trash mobs, focused only on reaching the deeper floors. He explains the dungeon's 3-tier layout while they keep moving. To advance from the lower floors to the middle ones, they need to collect 3 specific reward crystals. Alan gives her a smug look, hinting that his expert knowledge won't come for free. Melissa is clearly annoyed by his businessman attitude in the middle of a raid. They hit a bottleneck where another party is blocking the path to a boss. A level 45 Abyss Minotaur stands in their way, letting out a deafening roar. Melissa suggests they just go to a different floor, since there are several options available. Alan isn't interested in wasting time and refuses to back down from the challenge. He steps right up to the other party and tells them to get out of the way if they're too scared to fight. The lead adventurer is pissed that a level 24 crafter is talking down to him. The guys mockingly step aside, inviting Alan to go get himself killed. The Minotaur raises its weapon, ready to crush the tiny human in front of it. Melissa panics, yelling that her mana isn't ready for another big fight. Alan isn't worried, pulling out a high-grade magic stone he got from a sandworm. He starts crafting, the stone glowing as it's broken down for parts. He materializes a heavy rocket launcher, the barrel glowing with magical circuits. Alan mentions that with his bonuses, the attack power on this thing is over 30,000. He levels the weapon at the charging monster, preparing to end the fight with a single shot. He pulls the trigger, calling the fight early. A massive explosion completely engulfs the Minotaur. Melissa can't believe the level of destruction coming from a single weapon. The system confirms the level 45 boss has been wiped out. Alan checks his status, satisfied that his craft worked exactly as intended. The other adventurers who were mocking him are now completely speechless. Melissa follows behind, still trying to wrap her head around what just happened. She stares at him, demanding to know what kind of secret skill he's hiding. Alan keeps his cool, privately thinking that using the magic stone might have been overkill. They grab the first reward crystal, leaving only 2 more to go. He makes sure to loot the Minotaur's magic stone while they have the chance. Without slowing down, he heads toward the next section with Melissa struggling to keep up. She's still reeling from the fact that a dud job like Crafter just one-shot a high-level boss. They reach the Path of the Abyss, a section where the floor just completely disappears. Alan explains that this floor is all about puzzles, not raw power. Melissa looks at the huge drop, wondering how they're supposed to cross with no path. Alan tells her the floor isn't actually gone, it's just invisible. He shows her that it's a transparent bridge, where one wrong step leads to a very long fall. One of the guys from the other party thinks he can eyeball it, and jumps out. He immediately misses the path and vanishes into the abyss. Alan watches the guy fall without even flinching, noting that's why you don't guess. He explains the standard strategy is slowly poking around with a staff to find where it's safe to step. But he knows if they do that, the crowd behind them will just copy them and cause a massive pileup. Melissa suggests the simple route, why not just use his craft skill to build a safe bridge across? Alan points out that if magic or flying worked here, everyone would have already cleared it. Melissa tries to manifest a skill, but nothing happens. He explains that all skills and magic are completely restricted in this zone, including his own crafting. But as he looks out over the void, Alan has a smirk on his face because he has a non-magical solution ready. Melissa looks back, sensing something is off. They've reached the middle floors of the dungeon, where things start getting tricky. Alan explains that while regular crafting is disabled in this area, he's still got a few tricks up his sleeve. He pulls a strange high-tech looking device out of his inventory. Melissa stares at the gear, wondering what on earth it's supposed to be. It turns out to be a pair of night vision goggles made from an evil bat's magic stone, specifically for spotting invisible floors. Melissa is impressed, but she wants to know when he even found the time to make those. Turns out, while she was busy admiring the view from their balloon ride, Alan was hard at work crafting. She's starting to realize this guy knows the dungeon's secrets better than anyone. Alan slips the goggles on, explaining that they pick up infrared light. Through the lenses, a hidden glowing green path suddenly appears over the dark abyss. With a way forward clear, Alan tells her they can finally proceed. Before she can say a word, he suddenly scoops her up bridal style. He keeps it strictly professional, claiming it's the most efficient way to save time. Melissa is completely caught off guard and lets out a panicked scream. He takes off, sprinting across the invisible floor as if it were solid ground. The other adventurers nearby can't believe their eyes, watching a guy literally run through midair. Melissa is terrified, begging him to go slower and be careful. They make it across to a solid platform, leaving everyone else in the dust. The path splits ahead, and they stop to consider which way is the right one. Both directions lead to a crystal, so Melissa suggests they split up to cover more ground. She gets defensive when he hesitates, snapping at him to just shut up. Alan gives her a long, silent look. He decides they're sticking together, bluntly telling her it would be a problem if she died. He adds that he just needs her alive for info on the assassins, then starts walking. They enter the path of condemnation, a hallway filled with blood-stained swinging scythes. Melissa points out that getting hit is instant death, and asks how they're going to get through. Alan's plan is simple, he just crafts a weapon. He opens fire, blasting the swinging blades right out of the air. He notes that skills and magic are still allowed in this part of the dungeon. Melissa joins in, using her fire magic to help clear the traps. They charge through the hallway, destroying everything in their way. They eventually reach the Room of Precipices, with a crystal sitting at the very top of a massive wall. Melissa asks if there are any traps on the wall, and tells Alan to check it out. She suggests they use his crafting skills to just climb up without even touching the surface. Alan smirks, glad she's finally catching on to how useful a crafter can be. She assumes they're going to use the hot air balloon again to fly over the obstacle. But Alan shuts that down, saying a balloon is way too excessive for this spot. He starts channeling his magic to pull together his next invention. A metal cage platform with a control panel appears a literal elevator. Alan steps inside and calmly pushes a button on the console. As they begin to rise, he explains the concept of vertical transport to a very confused Melissa. Melissa is relieved they finally managed to get the second crystal. With 2 down, they only have 1 more to find to complete the set. Alan is ready to keep moving, but Melissa needs a moment to catch her breath. They arrive at the Room of the Poison Swamp, a toxic lake that looks like a literal death trap. Alan warns her that the poison is incredibly potent and will cause a status ailment on contact. Melissa isn't thrilled about the obstacle and asks what kind of high-tech craft he's planning to use this time. Alan starts channeling his crafting energy, lighting up the dim room. Instead of a high-tech machine, he produces a simple, wooden rowboat. Melissa is speechless, sweating at how mundane it is compared to his usual work, while Alan just looks confused by her shock. He hops in, but Melissa was clearly expecting something way more mysterious and magical. Alan points out that a simple boat gets the job done and tells her to hurry up and get in. As they drift out onto the toxic sludge, Melissa realizes something's missing the oars. Alan explains that this is where the teamwork comes in, calling her their engine. Before she can protest, she's at the back of the boat, using her wind magic to blast them across the water. She glares at him, asking if this isn't putting a bit too much of the manual labor on her shoulders. They reach the center pedestal without much trouble. They grab the third and final crystal, completing their collection. Melissa admits she thought this would be impossible, but they made it look easy. She starts to think that maybe crafter really is the strongest job in the world. Alan doesn't let the praise go to his head and just keeps moving toward the next objective. But as Melissa watches him, she realizes it's not just the job that's special. Her eyes are fixed on him as she thinks, it's you. They haven't known each other long, but she's becoming more and more certain of one thing. She believes Alan is the kind of adventurer whose name will eventually be written into the history books. A few minutes later, they arrive at the transfer room on the lower floor. Alan holds all 3 crystals, explaining that they need to slot them into the pedestal to reach the middle floors. Melissa can't help but comment on how he never gets lost, almost like he already knows every inch of this castle. Alan's expression goes dark as he tells her he literally staked his life on learning everything about this place. He places the crystals into the slots, and they begin to glow with a brilliant light. The authentication is a success, and the teleportation process to the middle floors begins. They land right in front of the entrance to the next section, a swirling blue portal. Melissa finds it bizarre to have an instance dungeon hidden inside another dungeon. Alan jokes that it's like a Matryoshka doll, a reference that goes completely over her head. He's ready to jump right in and asks if she's prepared, but Melissa stops him, her voice turning much more serious. Before they step into the unknown, she challenges him to a match to see who's really superior. Alan breaks down the dungeon layout, explaining that the middle floors are split into 2 distinct sections. On the first floor, they're going to be swarmed by a massive group of low-level monsters. Since the system is already tracking their kill counts, Melissa suggests making a game out of it to see who can take down more. Alan isn't exactly thrilled. He thinks the rules are pretty heavily stacked in her favor. As a sorcerer, Melissa is basically a walking cheat code for large-scale area attacks. Alan, on the other hand, usually sticks to firearms that pick off enemies one at a time. She starts poking at him, asking if he's actually scared he'll lose to her. Alan just finds the whole thing annoying. Melissa is determined to prove her magic is more than just a fancy way to travel. Deep down, she's desperate for some recognition and wants to finally show him what a real sorcerer can do. Alan finally caves and agrees to the deal since it'll help them clear the floor faster anyway. They set the stakes. The loser has to buy the winner a top-shelf potion. With that, they step toward the portal. They land on the first floor of the middle section, and the place is packed tight with hostiles. The swarm is a nasty mix of goblins and boars, all sporting glowing red eyes and ready to kill. The 2 of them lock in, eyes on the prize, and ready for the signal. The entire horde lets out a collective roar and charges right at them. Melissa makes the first move, chanting a spell to sweep the field clean. She unleashes Black Nebula, creating a massive void that shreds through the front lines of the horde. The spell wipes out a huge chunk of the field, and she's pretty smug about her clearing speed. Alan has to admit it's impressive. But then Alan steps up and summons something massive, a heavy Gatling gun that practically hums with power. He pulls the trigger and lets the lead fly, turning the remaining monsters into a red mist. The rate of fire is so high that the air itself seems to vibrate from the sheer volume of bullets. Melissa is completely caught off guard. She's never seen a weapon that can output that much damage that quickly. Alan explains that while he's a sitting duck while firing, no other weapon beats this when it comes to clearing a room. Melissa refuses to back down. She's a sorcerer. There's no way she's letting another class beat her at her own specialty. When the smoke clears, the result screen pops up. Alan takes the win with 811 kills to her 689. Melissa is absolutely crushed. She can't believe her magic lost to a bunch of mechanical guns. Alan tells her not to beat herself up since it was a close match, but he's clearly enjoying the win. As he walks past her, he just says she picked the wrong opponent for this kind of contest. She's left there in disbelief, finally realizing that Alan isn't just lucky, he's a complete anomaly. They move on to the next chamber, which Alan identifies as the floor boss arena. He's already thinking about the endgame, knowing that winning here brings them one step closer to the Jade Dragon Orb. Melissa notes how effortless the dungeon feels now, even though it's technically supposed to be way above their level. Suddenly, a blinding flash of blue energy erupts in the center of the room. The boss is here. It's a double threat, a massive crystal ogre riding on the back of a crystal manticore. The ogre is a level 50 powerhouse, and it looks ready to swing that club. The crystal manticore is just as dangerous, glowing with magical energy as it prepares to pounce. Melissa is surprised to see them working as a team, and Alan realizes they're built for coordinated strikes. Alan decides to skip the small talk and brings out the rocket launcher to end this quickly. Melissa recognizes it as the same weapon that deleted the last boss they fought, but as she looks at the stats, she notices it doesn't have any magical attachments and seems weaker than before. She asks if he'll be okay, but Alan is confident that a direct hit with a standard spec will still get the job done. He explains the trade-off. Magic stone crafts break after use, but a normal build like this can be used over and over again. The ogre manticore boss lunges forward with terrifying speed. Melissa shouts a warning, but Alan stands his ground. Alan stays calm and gives Melissa a specific order: freeze the floor right now. She's confused by the plan, but she doesn't hesitate to slam her hand down and cast the spell. A jagged path of ice crystals instantly spreads across the floor in front of the charging boss. Alan knows that if he just fires blindly, the manticore's high evasion will let it dodge his shot. By turning the ground into ice, he's forced the beast into a situation where it can't maneuver. To avoid sliding, the boss has no choice but to leap high into the air. Alan just smirks, knowing he's got them exactly where he wants them. Without wings, the enemy can't move while they're in midair. They're basically sitting ducks. Alan pulls the trigger, shouting for them to get blasted into oblivion. But the ogre is smarter than it looks. It uses its own mount as a stepping stone to launch itself even higher. The rocket connects with the manticore, blowing it apart in a massive explosion. Alan's stunned. That kind of advanced coordination shouldn't even be possible for these monsters. Now the ogre is dropping from the ceiling, club raised and ready to crush everything below it. Melissa panics and screams for Alan to run, knowing her magic won't reach him in time. She suddenly realizes that despite his firepower, Alan is only level 25 and has 0 defensive gear. If he takes this hit, he's dead instantly. She drops everything and sprints forward, hoping to take the blow in his place. The ogre's club comes down with lethal force as Alan just stands there. Melissa's heart sinks. She realizes she's not going to be fast enough to intercept the strike. The massive club is inches away from crushing Alan's head. She reaches out in desperation, terrified that she's about to watch her partner get obliterated. A massive beast lunges from above, but Alan calmly tracks it with his weapon. It used a manticore as a springboard to dodge, which was a surprise, but he's already adjusted his aim. A holographic reload screen pops up. This is exactly where he wanted the fight to go. A thunderous explosion rocks the area, completely engulfing the monster in a fireball. Melissa is forced to shield her eyes from the blinding flash of the blast. As the smoke clears, a system notification shows Alan has reached level 26. It's right on schedule. Melissa stares at him in disbelief. She really thought he was out of ammo that time. He explains that his new launcher has an auto-reload function that kicks in the moment the magazine is empty. He takes a knee to let the mechanism reset. If that reload hadn't finished in time, he'd be a dead man. He reaches down and picks up a glowing purple crystal dropped by the boss. With the area cleared, only the crystal dragon is left on their list. Melissa watches him from behind, thinking about how most adventurers just rely on brute force. Alan's absolute composure is something she's never seen before. She has to tell him to wait up, but that same confidence is exactly why he's becoming a target for powerful enemies. They finally reach the entrance to the upper floors of the Crystal Sky Castle. Melissa rushes forward, ready for the final battle to begin. She tries to push the massive doors, but Alan just tells her they're only there for show. He explains that this floor uses a teleportation portal. Though there's nothing visible yet, his expression goes cold. If the portal isn't active, it means someone else is already inside. Melissa's heart sinks. If another party clears the boss first, they'll have to restart from scratch. She starts to panic, realizing how much progress they could lose. Alan just takes a seat, telling her that worrying won't help. They need a strategy. He warns her that the Crystal Dragon is an epic class monster with an instant kill attack. Melissa is stunned. An epic class is on a whole different level of dangerous. It's a grade even higher than a standard boss class monster. Aside from the one-shot move, the dragon has another unique trait, a damage cap. Even if an attack hits for 100,000, everything exceeding the cap is completely negated. Melissa realizes that makes Alan's overwhelming firepower practically useless. That's why he wants to lock in their battle strategy right now. She asks what he needs her to do. He explains that endless waves of minor enemies will keep spawning until the boss is dead. He looks her dead in the eye and tells her he'll be the one to handle the dragon. Her job is to wipe out the mobs and take cover behind him the moment he gives the signal. Suddenly, a massive blue portal flares to life in front of them. Alan notes that since they weren't booted out of the castle, the previous party must have failed. Melissa starts to get nervous, wondering if they were taken out by that instant kill attack. Alan just starts walking forward, convinced that sticking to the plan will lead them to victory. She takes a breath and tells him she's putting all her trust in his hands. He tells her to leave it all to him. As they step into the portal, he reminds himself that he's not dying until he hits level 99. They emerge in a massive, open-air arena at the top of the castle. The sight that greets them is horrific. The entire floor is covered in blood and bodies. Melissa gazes at the carnage in shock. They weren't just defeated, they were slaughtered. Alan knows there's no time to be scared. They have to move. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifts as a massive presence enters the fray. The Crystal Dragon reveals itself, a colossal beast made of jagged ice and blue light. It's an epic class monster, sitting at level 50, a predator that has already turned the floor into a graveyard. Melissa is frozen for a second, feeling the crushing weight of the dragon's power. Alan tells her to keep it together. If she panics now, they're both finished. It's not just the dragon. Either the shadows are alive with a literal army of mobs. He tells Melissa to handle the small fry while he focuses everything on the big guy. The Gatling gun roars to life, shredding the silence with a hail of bullets. He knows about the dragon's damage cap, but the sheer volume of his fire is the perfect counter. Melissa is shocked. She's never seen anyone overwhelm an epic class boss like this before. To him, it's just about knowing the gimmick. Once you figure out the pattern, the fear goes away. She starts pushing the advantage, trusting his lead as they carve through the monsters. The battle is a blur of fire, magic, and flying debris. But right at the peak of the fight, the barrel stops spinning. He's completely out of ammo. Seeing its opening, the Crystal Dragon prepares its most powerful move. Alan shouts for Melissa to get back. He knows exactly what's coming. A sphere of terrifying purple energy begins to swell in the dragon's mouth. It unleashes the Black Death Flame, a beam of concentrated destruction meant to end the fight instantly. Thinking fast, Alan slams his hand down and activates his craft. A massive steel wall erupts from the ground, surprising Melissa as it takes the hit. He explains it's a specialized fire-resistant shield he made for just this kind of scenario. As the flames roar against the metal, he starts counting down for his next move while his gun reloads. But the shield starts to groan and crack, unable to withstand the dragon's relentless power. This definitely wasn't part of the plan. The defense is failing way faster than he expected. He realizes he needs a new method, and he needs it right now. With a deafening crash, the steel shield shatters into 1,000 pieces. As the fire closes in, Alan reaches out again, pouring everything he has left into one final craft. Alan pulls out a red cylinder and starts channeling his crafting power into it. It turns out he's making a fire extinguisher, which seems a bit random in a dungeon. To make it work against magic, he fuses a crystal ogre's magic stone into the base. The crafter sprints toward the dragon, praying his new invention actually holds up. He's betting everything on his unique crafting ability. He pulls the trigger, and a massive cloud of white foam bursts out. The spray slams into the dragon's breath midair. Hina is stunned. She's never seen a basic tool stand up to a monster's magic before. The beast puts everything into its purple fire, but the foam won't budge. The foam completely neutralizes the epic grade attack, freezing it in place. The girl stares in disbelief at the weird red tank. Alan explains that it's not a weapon, it's just a basic tool for putting out fires. Now that the fire is out, he pulls out something much louder. He whips out a Gatling gun and starts shredding the monster. The dragon's health bar starts draining fast under the constant hail of bullets. Hina sees the opening and gets ready to jump back into the fight. The massive creature collapses as the room shakes from the impact. Alan calls out to her, telling her it's time to finish this together. The warrior charges up her magic circles for a final, decisive strike. The crafter keeps the Gatling gun spinning to keep the pressure on. With one last explosion of light, the Crystal Dragon's head shatters. A notification pops up. The epic grade boss has finally been slain. Both of them see their levels jump up as the experience rolls in. As the dust settles, the pair walks through the clear air of the boss room. He kneels down to collect the dragon's magic stone from the rubble. Hina asks about the orb, hoping for a rare drop. A treasure chest spawns in a pillar of light right in front of them. They move to check the loot immediately. Inside sits the Jade Dragon Orb, a high-tier epic material. The girl is thrilled she can't believe they actually pulled it off, but Alan's face goes dark as he looms over her. He tells her to wait before she touches the orb and triggers the warp out. Suddenly, he pulls out a handgun and points it directly at her head. He hasn't forgotten the deal. He wants to know who sent the assassins. Facing the barrel of a strange weapon, she starts to break out in a cold sweat. She begs him to put the dangerous thing away, and promises to tell him everything. But then, she admits she doesn't actually know the specific person's name. Alan's eyes narrow, and the tension in the room spikes. He presses the gun right against her forehead, clearly not buying it. Hina panics, and quickly clarifies that she at least knows which organization is behind it. He keeps the weapon steady, willing to listen if the information is useful. He demands to know everything about this organization, and if they're a rival clan. Hina reveals that the hit didn't come from a small group, but from something much bigger. She names the organization he's all too familiar with, the Adventurer Guild itself. Alan is stunned, unable to comprehend why the guild would want him dead. He points out that their main goal is supposed to be defeating the Demon King, something he's already agreed to help with. Hina explains that if he were just an ordinary adventurer, there wouldn't be an issue. But the problem is that he's simply too strong. Alan starts to realize that even the assassin who attacked him mentioned something similar. The girl continues, explaining that there are big shots in the guild who don't appreciate his overwhelming power, because at his current rate, he might actually defeat the Demon King, and some people really don't want that to happen. She explains the cold logic. If the world is at peace, adventurers and their guild would no longer be needed. In other words, they're killing off talented heroes just to keep their jobs and social standing. This corrupt group within the high-ranking executives is known as the Demon King's Remnant Faction. Alan's eyes narrow as he asks for the leader of this faction. Even if he doesn't know who ordered the hit, he figures the problem is solved if he just takes out the head. The warrior shrugs, admitting that nobody actually knows who they are. She clarifies that they aren't working with the Demon King's army directly, so they don't do anything as obvious as open sabotage. The group is made up of anyone whose status would be threatened by peace, from weapon merchants and clerics to tavern owners. The crafter realizes there's no end to the list of suspects if he tries to think that far ahead, but based on the professional methods used against him, it's almost certainly someone inside the guild. He doesn't care about their politics, but he won't tolerate anyone interfering with his leveling. He asks how other targeted adventurers are handling this. He specifically wants to hear about other promising prospects who are in the same boat. The girl stands up tall, reminding him that she's technically one of those prospects too. She quickly pivots, wanting to discuss how they're going to protect themselves from any future assassination attempts. Huge white towers stretch into the sky as blue light rains down on the gates. Adventurers who were inside just got booted back to the entrance, and they're definitely not ready for it. Everyone's looking around trying to figure out what happened. They start whispering about whether or not the crystal dragon was finally taken down. High above the crowd, a glowing blue system screen pops into existence, grabbing everyone's attention. The message is clear: the dungeon has been conquered by Melissa and a guy named Alan. People are losing it because only 2 people cleared the whole thing. 2 random guys are skeptical, figuring Melissa probably did all the work while this Alan guy just tagged along. The heroes of the hour walk out from the light. Melissa looks heroic, but Alan's just wearing plain white clothes like he's out for a stroll. Melissa looks over the edge and realizes they're stuck on a high ledge. She mentions she can't use a teleport to get them down. Alan just shrugs and tells her he'll craft some parachutes to solve the problem. They glide down, and as soon as they land, the crowd swarms them. Everyone's shouting Melissa's name. The 2 of them walk through the gate, ignoring the stairs. Alan's keeping a low profile, while Melissa is front and center. People are losing their minds over the clear. Reaching the dragon's upper floors is hard enough, but a duo clear is unheard of. Melissa leans into the fame, joking that she's a rising star being targeted by big shot enemies. A mob of adventurers surrounds her, begging to know how she defeated the castle dragon. She tries to calm everyone down, looking a little embarrassed. She tells them she's not the one they should be asking. She points straight at Alan, calling him the real legend. The crowd goes silent before the shock hits them. They check his stats and see he's a level 27 crafter. Immediately, they start laughing, thinking it's a joke. Alan scans the room and sees high-level adventurers everywhere. 50s, 60s, you name it. He's the weakest guy there by a mile. He doesn't care about the mocking, though. He sees this crowd as the perfect audience for a gear demo. Melissa keeps talking, telling them his crafts are actually insane and way more powerful than they look. Alan puts a hand on her shoulder and tells her to knock it off. He turns to the crowd and lies through his teeth, telling everyone Melissa killed the dragon solo. He tells them he was only there for some gimmicks and tools she needed. Melissa looks at him like he's grown a second head, totally confused why he's lying. Alan thinks to himself that standing out too much makes leveling a pain. He decides to keep his weapons hidden for now. Melissa watches him walk off, realizing he's taking the fall to keep the Demon King from noticing him. The crowd buys it and goes back to cheering for her. They figure it makes way more sense for a top-class sorcerer to win. Melissa gets super flustered, her face turning bright red as she tells him to stop. Looking back at the floating ice fortress in the sky, Alan figures he did a decent job of tagging along. They finally make it into the heart of the royal capital, a massive city with white-walled buildings and orange roofs. As they hit the main street, Melissa says she's going to the guild to cash in. Alan tells her he's heading straight for an inn. He explains that he's actually going to hang on to his magic stones to use for crafting more gear. Melissa plays up the drama, teasing him about how hard it must be to leave her side. Alan doesn't miss a beat, just waving her off with a casual goodbye. She's left standing there, fuming that he's such a handful. She takes a quiet moment to herself, her eyes closing as she thinks back on the dungeon. Alan realizes he didn't give her much info, but he still got the rare materials he was hunting for. Melissa stands tall, thinking about how unfair it feels that he's doing all this for her. The sun sets over the stone walls of the capital. Melissa decides she doesn't want to owe him anything. She turns around and tells him she'll start investigating the Demon King's remnants on her own. She looks him in the eye and asks to go hunting again soon, promising she'll be the one carrying him in the next fight. She waves him off, wishing him luck. He waves back and heads into the crowd. As he walks away, Melissa is still in disbelief. She's a top-tier sorcerer, and she was just carried through a dungeon by a level 27 crafter. Melissa stares at her palm as a small fireball flickers to life. She wonders if she can ever match the raw power Alan has been showing off. Suddenly, her expression shifts. She feels a chilling wave of bloodlust coming from somewhere nearby. She spins around to face the street, scanning the crowds for anything suspicious. Tucked away in the shadows of a building, a masked archer takes aim, his eyes cold and focused. He doesn't hesitate, letting a single arrow fly toward his target. Melissa spots the danger and reaches out, screaming Alan's name as the arrow streaks past her. Alan barely reacts in time, diving to the pavement as a burst of green energy tears into the ground where he was just standing. Melissa looks up at the roofs, frustrated that the assassin managed to slip away into the sunlight so easily. She walks over as Alan picks himself up, remarking that he just narrowly escaped a trip to the afterlife. Alan lets out a long breath, admitting he didn't think anyone would be bold enough to strike inside the capital. He stands there in silence, realizing that his enemies are getting desperate, and he won't be able to walk around town safely if he doesn't do something. Melissa mentions a plan she had earlier, and even though he looks annoyed, Alan finally agrees to give it a shot. She gives him a stern look, offering to be his personal bodyguard as long as he can afford her fees. Alan just gives her a flat no, saying that sounds way too expensive, and he'll just figure out a way to handle it himself. She smirks and points a finger at him, reminding him that they're officially party members now anyway. She starts yelling at him, making sure he's actually listening to her. She tells him that since he's a man she actually respects, she won't forgive him if he lets some random thug take him out. Alan just gives her a cocky half smile, saying he doesn't plan on dying until he at least reaches level 999. Melissa waves a casual goodbye and heads off, leaving him alone in the middle of the street. Alan thinks back to his time in the VR game ZFO, where he spent every waking hour leveling up as a lone wolf. He used to think it was better to be alone without any dead weight to slow him down, but looking at his time with Melissa, he realizes having a companion isn't so bad. He catches himself smiling, and realizes this kind of sentimentality really isn't like him. For now, he decides his top priority has to be dealing with the assassins who are hunting him. The next morning, the sun rises over the city, as Alan heads toward a massive, fortified complex. He looks up at the towering white walls, thinking about how he never thought he'd have a reason to visit this place. But with the Demon King's remnants still causing trouble, he doesn't really have a choice. He stops at the gates of the massive building, which is the official headquarters of the clan association. Flashback to one day ago, right after Alan took down the Crystal Dragon. Olivia tells him that the smartest move he can make to deal with the assassins is to join a clan. Alan thinks he has a handle on what that means, but Olivia wants to make sure he gets the full picture. He doesn't quite see how joining a group is going to help him stay in one piece. She explains it using nature as an example. It's way harder for a predator to pick off an animal when it's part of a herd. Plus, the big-time clans have serious political pull, which adds another layer of safety. Olivia points out that even the higher-ups at the Adventurers Guild have their preferred clans for a reason. Joining one would give him a secure place to stay and a steady stream of information at the same time. Back in the present, Alan arrives at the clan association to start his search. He's got a specific goal in mind, but he's not exactly sure how to go about it. The people in the hall recognize him instantly. Word's already gotten out that he's the guy who completely smashed the Wolf Mine record. They're also buzzing about him clearing the Crystal Sky Castle with Melissa just the day before. Alan keeps moving, noticing that the association is split up into different desks based on clan type. He goes through the categories, like the conquest types that focus entirely on clearing dungeons. Then there's everything from subjugation and gathering to simple social clans. From the looks of the crowd, the general and conquest types are by far the most popular. But Alan doesn't care about what everyone else is doing. A guy suddenly calls out to him, asking if he's looking for a group. It's Max, the leader of a B-rank conquest clan called the Gazelles. He's heard that Alan is a top-tier crafter and wants him to bring that talent to his squad. Before Alan can even respond, another person tells him to forget about the conquest guys. This guy leads the Tigers, a B-rank general clan, and they're more than happy to have him. Max gets heated about the guy cutting in, but the newcomer just tells him to take a number. It quickly turns into a full-blown bidding war in the middle of the hall. It seems like every recruiter there wants to get their hands on him. They start shouting about their ranks and membership size, and one girl even tries to lure him in with some alluring promises. Alan finally speaks up to shut them all down. He tells the crowd he's only interested in a defense clan that's at least A rank. The recruiters are completely blindsided by the request. For Alan, it's a purely strategic move. Defense clans are tightly connected to the government and local lords, which makes them perfect for gathering intel. Plus, it gives him a great front for distributing his crafted weapons to different cities. He makes his stance clear. If they don't fit those conditions, they need to back off. The crowd starts to thin out pretty quickly after that. He's actually a bit surprised at how fast they give up on him. Just then, the sound of heavy metal footsteps echoes through the hall. A massive warrior named Flynn steps forward, his body glowing with a powerful aura. He introduces himself as the master of the A-rank defense clan, Holy Guardian. Alan's eyes widen when he sees the guy's level is 378. That's insane, even for this world. Flynn asks if he's really ready for their strict discipline, since he doesn't do special treatment. Olivia's voice rings in his head again. Joining on a trial basis would make it much easier to walk away if he needs to. Alan decides to take the deal. He tells Flynn that as long as it's a trial membership, he's in. A system window immediately pops up in front of him, inviting him to join the A-rank defense clan, Holy Guardian. Without hesitation, he taps the accept button on the glowing screen. The notification updates, confirming that he's officially a member of the group. Flynn reaches out and gives him a firm handshake, welcoming him to the team. He's ready to move, telling Alan they'll head straight to their headquarters to iron out all the details. They arrive at the Holy Guardian headquarters, a massive, upscale mansion that clearly shows off the clan's status. Once inside, Flynn starts the orientation by asking Alan if he actually knows what being part of a defense-type clan entails. Alan admits he's only got the basics down. They go out to villages and cities to stop the Demon King's forces. Flynn breaks it down further, explaining that they always operate in 3-person parties, made up of members with similar levels. This catches Alan off guard. He immediately asks if going solo is off the table. Flynn confirms that unfortunately, that's not how they do things. Alan isn't thrilled about the idea. He knows that being tied down to a group like that is only going to slow down his progress. Flynn goes on to say that, until his level is higher, his only duty is going to be patrolling the city. To Alan, that's just a fancy way of saying he'll be taking a walk, which won't help him level up or deal with the hidden threats in the city. Flynn finishes up the briefing and asks if Alan has any questions about the setup. Alan's mind is racing. There's no way he can work under these conditions. He needs to be out on missions where he can actually use and distribute his weapons. Flynn can see the hesitation on his face and asks if something is bothering him. Alan knows he's got no choice but to push back and try to cut a better deal. He looks Flynn in the eye and tells him that while he doesn't have questions, he definitely has a request. He gets straight to the point, saying he has zero interest in patrolling and wants to jump straight into the defense missions. Flynn shuts him down instantly, reminding him that as long as he's part of the clan, he has to play by the rules. Alan isn't backing down that easily. He proposes a compromise. If he can prove he's strong enough, he wants a special exception to the level requirements. He makes his offer simple. He wants a duel, and if he wins, he gets to do things his way. Flynn looks more than a little amused by the kid's confidence. The scarred man behind the desk isn't interested. He tells Alan he can't accept his request. He simply doesn't see what's in it for him. The Holy Guardian captain suggests Alan try out some normal activities for a week and then come back to talk if he's still interested. Alan looks down, agreeing to the trial membership, but he's ready to walk if it's a bad fit. A knock at the door gets the captain's attention. He tells Alan that his new teammates have finally arrived. The door swings open, and 2 young adventurers walk in. The captain introduces Naoki and Hina, noting that they're both Lancers. Naoki, a level 55 Lancer, gives a confident smirk as he greets the newbie. Hina, at level 40, introduces herself with a friendly smile. Alan is skeptical. He knows party members usually have closer levels, even in a high-ranked clan like this one. Naoki isn't impressed. He complains to the captain that Alan looks weak and his level is way too low. Hina scolds him for being rude and pulls him back. The captain just grins, mentioning that Alan is actually pretty famous on the streets. Naoki is stunned. He can't believe a level 27 could be famous for anything good. He's even more disgusted when he realizes Alan is just a crafter. Hina's eyes go wide. She wonders if he's that famous Alan the crafter. Alan just stares back, wondering which version of himself she's heard about. Hina mentions he cleared the Crystal Sky Castle yesterday with Melissa. The captain admits that's a pretty impressive feat. Alan asks if the captain didn't know about his past either, making the big guy laugh. Alan thinks back to the massive crowd that swarmed him and Melissa at the clan association. The captain admits he only let Alan in because someone getting that much attention must have some talent. Hina is practically glowing, thrilled to be in a party with someone so incredible. Naoki isn't buying it. He figures Alan just leached off Melissa's strength to get through that castle. Alan remembers Melissa bragging about being a rising star. To settle things, the captain tells them to head out for a hunt so they can see each other's skills in action. Hina and Naoki are both hyped and ready to go. Naoki gives Alan a shove, telling him this is his last chance to admit he's weak. Alan finds the guy's constant posturing more annoying than anything else. He decides to just play along, telling Naoki he really was just a leech, and Melissa did the heavy lifting. Naoki slaps him on the back, telling the newbie to just count on his senior. The three of them head out of the office together. The captain watches them go, thinking Alan is a pretty bad liar. He knows that an adventurer who makes the impossible happen isn't just a parasite. They arrive at the Forest of Trents, a level 35 zone. Naoki asks Alan if he knows anything about the place. Alan stays quiet. He mostly avoided this area in the game because the experience points were trash. He warns them that some monsters here look exactly like trees, so they're impossible to spot without detection skills. He asks if they can use any skills to find them, or if he needs to whip up some detection items. Naoki just laughs and tells him not to underestimate them, saying the Trents aren't even a threat. A predatory eye narrows in the dark forest. Suddenly, two glowing red eyes appear right behind them. Alan tells the group to watch their left. A massive level 35 Trent towers over them, its wooden face contorted and its red eyes glowing with hunger. Naoki and Hina are caught off guard as the monster prepares to strike. Naoki shouts for Hina to move, and they both jump into position to take the beast down. The two lancers leap into the air with perfect timing. They strike as one, their spears biting deep into the creature's bark. It's a coordinated display of skill, their weapons leaving bright trails of energy in the air. Alan stands back and watches, analyzing their movements to see how typical adventurers fight. Naoki looks over his shoulder with a cocky grin, clearly expecting to be praised. When Alan just says it's not bad, Naoki nearly blows a fuse, insisting that their teamwork was top tier. But they don't have time to argue, as another Trent bursts through the trees. Suddenly, the forest is crawling with them, and the group finds themselves completely surrounded. Naoki steps back and tells the newbie to show them what he's got, promising to save him if he messes up. Alan just smiles, finding the offer of protection pretty amusing. He reaches into his inventory and pulls out a massive, glowing minigun that crackles with magical energy. His teammates can only stare in horror, wondering what kind of weapon could possibly look like that. Alan thinks about being precise with a thermal scope, but decides that just flattening everything is much more efficient. He pulls the trigger, and the forest erupts with the roar of heavy gunfire. A storm of bullets shreds the monsters, leaving nothing but wood chips and smoke. Naoki is left speechless, while Hina can barely believe the raw power she just witnessed. When the smoke clears, a scorched crater is the only thing left where the monsters once stood. Alan looks back at them with a smug smirk, telling his senior that he handled things just fine. Naoki is sweating and shell-shocked, his ego completely crushed. Hina is full of praise, while Naoki desperately tries to play it cool by calling the slaughter a decent job. As they start to leave, a voice from the shadows whispers that he's finally found his target. A mysterious man steps out of the trees, a dark, oppressive aura radiating from his body. With a malicious grin and glowing red eyes, the unknown stalker greets Alan like an old rival. Alan looks totally blank as some guy with a ponytail starts getting in his face. He has no idea who this dude even is. The guy, Lucas, looks like he's about to pop a vein. He can't believe Alan's actually forgotten about the great Lucas. Naoki and Hino watch from the side as Lucas keeps screaming about Alan breaking some clear record. The guy is definitely taking it personally. Lucas throws up a status window to show off his level. He's managed to hit 73. He's clearly looking for a reaction. Alan remembers running into him back at the wolf mine. Last time they met, Lucas was only level 65. Lucas is all smug, thinking he's finally got the upper hand now that he's leveled up quite a bit. Alan just turns around and starts walking away. It's been a week, and he's not really interested in a status update. That just pisses Lucas off even more. He screams Alan's name, refusing to be ignored. Alan stops and looks back, pointing out that this isn't a dungeon. There's no clear time to compete over out here. Lucas doesn't care about technicalities. He draws his sword and demands a one-on-one duel right then and there. Naoki and Hina jump in, calling him out for being a bully. A level 73 challenging someone with a lower level is just dirty. Lucas flares up a red aura, glaring with glowing eyes. He tells the peanut gallery to shut their mouths, and it's enough to make the two of them flinch. Alan sighs and pulls out a handgun. He warns Lucas that a duel actually gives the crafter too much of an advantage. Lucas just scoffs at the weapon. He thinks he's already figured out the secret behind Alan's guns and isn't impressed. He keeps laughing, sticking his tongue out like a total weirdo. He tells Alan he'd better craft a real sword if he wants to win. A shot rings out, the muzzle flash lighting up the forest. Lucas screams as the bullet grazes his ear, sending a spray of blood into the air. Alan doesn't even blink. He tells him that his information is officially out of date. Lucas hits the dirt, clutching the side of his head in shock. Alan stands there, pointing out it's just a scratch. Lucas isn't sticking around for a second shot. He scrambles to his feet and runs off, shouting a classic, "Remember this," over his shoulder. Naoki is floored. He can't believe Alan just casually brushed off a level 73 like he was nothing. Hina is staring at Alan with literal heart eyes. Naoki sees it and looks like his soul is leaving his body. As they keep moving through the forest, Alan mentions their next target, the Treant King, in the deepest part. Hina is still blushing, totally impressed. She used to think crafters were weak, but Alan is proving they're monsters depending on how they're used. Alan agrees, saying the job has its quirks, but it's perfect for him. Naoki just watches the two of them walk ahead, feeling left out. Naoki grits his teeth, worried that this new guy is going to steal Hina right from under him. Hina starts fidgeting, getting all shy. She asks Alan if he's got a girlfriend or anything. Naoki's had enough. He jumps between them, shouting for them to hold on. He slams his spear into the ground and tells Hina she needs to go keep watch on their surroundings. Then he points right in Alan's face, demanding they have an immediate strategy meeting. Alan doesn't think they really need one. Naoki drags him away anyway, leaving Hina sitting there looking completely confused. Once they're far enough away that she can't hear, Naoki stops. Alan asks what the big idea is. Naoki's expression goes dead serious. He admits the whole meeting thing was just an excuse to get him alone. He stares Alan down, saying there's something he absolutely has to tell him. Then he drops into a full dogeza, begging Alan to keep his hands off Hina. He explains that they're childhood friends, but his feelings go way beyond that. He's bright red now, basically yelling his confession into the dirt. Alan just looks at him like he's a massive pain. He's got zero interest in romance and just wants to avoid the drama. He tells Naoki to relax and offers to actually help him out with his crush. Alan gestures toward the path ahead. Since they've got a boss fight coming up, he suggests they put on a little show for Hina. His plan is to go in and fight the boss alone at first. Naoki realizes the flaw in that immediately. With Alan's insane attack power, he probably won't even get a turn to look cool. Alan explains his plan. He can actually tune down his weapon's firepower. He's going to fake a struggle so Naoki can swoop in and look like the hero. He knows the Treant King's biggest weakness is its mobility. If they just keep moving, it should be an easy solo win. Naoki is so touched he basically tackles Alan in a hug. Alan's not really a hugger and tells him to knock it off. The group heads deeper into the woods, ready to take on the boss. Hina stays a few paces back as they approach the clearing. The Treant King towers over them. It's a level 35 boss-class monster, with 3 glowing red eyes and a massive, craggy beard. Naoki's jaw drops at the sheer size of the thing. It's way bigger than he expected. Alan tells the other two to stay back. He says they don't need a complicated plan for this. Naoki is sweating bullets, hoping Alan's struggle act actually works out. Alan summons a new weapon with a flash of blue light. This time, it's a sleek assault rifle. He thinks to himself that even with the power turned way down, his stats might still make this too easy. He's got to be careful not to kill it by accident. Hina is all sparkles, totally impressed by another new gun. Even Naoki is surprised by how many types of weapons Alan has in his pocket. Alan explains it's an assault rifle. It doesn't have the insane firepower of a Gatling gun, but it's much easier to handle. He starts firing. The muzzle flashes, lighting up the dim forest as he aims for the Treant's trunk. The bullets pepper the boss, but because Alan messed with the settings, they barely leave a scratch. Then he starts his big performance. He yells that his settings are messed up and he's about to be defeated. Naoki looks at him like, wow, he's really committed to the bit. Right on cue, Naoki rushes in. He shouts for the newbie to back off and leave the rest to him. He shoots a quick look back at Hina, trying to look as cool and reassuring as possible. He leaps into action, dodging a massive wooden limb as it slams into the forest floor. Naoki gets some serious air, and drives his spear right into the center of the Treant King. Hina is totally bought in, amazed by how reliable Naoki is being. Alan just watches with a bored face. He figures it might take Naoki a while to chip away the health, but he should be fine. Naoki gets cocky, mocking the boss and asking if it's just a giant piece of kindling. Suddenly, a branch catches him off guard. Before he can react, it's already on top of him. The Treant King slams him straight into the dirt with a heavy thud. Alan's deadpan expression says it all. He can't believe the guy actually managed to blow it. Naoki is left face down in a crater, surrounded by giant roots. The hero moment didn't exactly go as planned. Alan aims a high-tech launcher as blue energy crackles around it. He's looking pretty indifferent about the target. He pulls the trigger, and a massive explosion lights up the entire forest. The smoke clears, and Naoki is on the ground, coughing his lungs out. In front of him sits a massive green loot gem. The guy walks up and grabs the gem, while a level up notification pops up. He just hit level 28. Hina is completely stunned, realizing he just one-shotted the Treant King. She rushes over and grabs his arm, demanding to know how he pulled that off. Naoki finally drags himself up, but instead of saying thanks, he's acting like a sore loser. He claims he had it all under control. Hina isn't having it and immediately starts scolding him for being so rude to someone who just saved them. Being roasted by the girl you like is a special kind of pain, and Naoki looks like he wants the ground to swallow him whole. She turns back to apologize, asking if he thinks he might have gone a bit overboard. Alan realizes what's going on. Naoki was just trying to look cool in front of Hina, and he totally ruined the vibe. Despite the awkwardness, the girl can't stop talking about how easily he handled the boss. Alan looks at the pouting Naoki and realizes he needs to throw the guy a bone. He looks her in the eye and tells her that he only dealt the final blow. He claims that Naoki had already cornered the beast, making the victory actually his. The Mohawk guy's mood flips instantly, and he starts bragging about how he basically had it beat before his friend interfered. Hina is even more impressed, but not by the sore loser she's moved, by how humble Alan is being. She's practically got hard eyes now, asking him to go out for a meal once they get back to town. Naoki's soul officially leaves his body as he watches his crush fall for the guy he's jealous of. Later, the group heads to the Holy Guardian clan headquarters to report in. The captain greets them with a smile, curious to hear how the mission went. Hina does all the talking, gushing about how Alan took down the boss and even chased off a level 73 swordsman. He mentions that the swordsman tried to pick a fight with him at the wolf mine a week ago. The captain recognizes the description immediately. The guy's name was Lucas. Turns out, Lucas has a history of causing trouble for their clan members in the past. The captain tells them that if he ever bothers them again, just drop the clan's name to keep him in line. Alan realizes just how much deterrent power a top-tier clan's name carries. The captain is just glad everyone made it back in one piece. Hina suggests the four of them go out for a welcome party for their new member. Unfortunately, the blonde leader is stuck with a mountain of paperwork and has to pass. The girl immediately pivots, saying it'll just be a date for her and Alan then. Naoki's heart shatters again. The captain tells them to have fun but not stay out too late. Before they leave, he mentions that a new request has already come in for their party. Hina is hyped, especially since the client specifically nominated Alan by name. But the leader warns them this isn't a standard defense mission. The client wants Alan to distribute his unique crafted weapons to the local residents. His response is pretty blunt. He's basically just being asked to hand out guns. The captain confirms it, but the location makes it a lot more dangerous. Biendel. Naoki and Hina are visibly shaken because that's a frontline city constantly at war with the Demon Lord's army. The city is a bloodbath where the residents are desperate for any edge they can get. The captain gives him an out, saying he's free to decline if he's not up for it. But Alan doesn't hesitate. He takes the job. Alan realizes that distributing his modern weapons is actually a huge win. It's the most efficient way to farm XP without having to do all the heavy lifting himself. The captain points out that, since he was only here on a trial run, he needs to know if he's officially ready to sign on with the clan. The guy agrees without hesitation, honestly surprised that he was still technically an outsider this whole time. But, as he thinks it over, something feels off. It's suspicious that a client would specifically nominate a trial member who hasn't even established a reputation yet. The captain tells them the plan. Teleport to Biendel tomorrow morning with all expenses paid. Suspicious, Alan suggests he should just go alone if he's just acting as a delivery boy. Hina isn't having any of that. She grabs his arm and insists that once the mission is over, they have to spend some time exploring the city together. He tries to tell her to be a bit more mindful of the situation, but the captain just watches them with a quiet smile. The girl practically drags him out of the room, leaving a very frustrated Naoki trailing behind them. Even as they leave, Alan can't shake his doubts. He keeps wondering how the client could possibly have known he joined the clan so quickly. The captain had explained that while the official list updates instantly, a trial membership is just a verbal pact with no public record. He had noticed the look on the boy's face and asked if there was actually something wrong with the request. Alan played it cool, claiming he was just amazed that word about a level 28 crafter could travel so far across the kingdom. He leaves the office, resolved to finish the mission perfectly, despite the obvious red flags. Skipped. This panel index is out of bounds or empty, based on the 1-7 panel request ending at index 16. Hina notices his intense expression and asks if he's okay, but he just tells her it's nothing. In his head, he knows he's being targeted. Being specifically called out for a job less than 12 hours after joining the clan is way too fast to be a coincidence. As the group heads out, the captain watches the sunset from his window. Alan's mind is racing, wondering if a guy named Flynn is actually part of a secret faction working against them. The group finally touches down at the walled city of Biendel, but the view from above isn't exactly a welcoming party. Alan, Hina, and Flynn step out of the warp, ready to head straight into the heart of the city. Something's definitely off. There's zero foot traffic, and every single shop is shut tight. Alan can feel it too. The whole place is giving off some seriously bad vibes. Further in, the city's guards are already locked in a desperate struggle against something big. The trio spots the commotion near the gate, and it looks like things are going south fast. A massive level 55 giant lizard boss is rampaging right through the city's defenses. The beast lunges forward, sending the armored soldiers scattering just to stay alive. Alan isn't about to stand by. He pulls out a rocket launcher crackling with blue energy. One shot is all it takes to turn that boss-class monster into a massive pile of smoke and fire. He lands in the aftermath, still holding the smoking launcher while the dust settles. The guards can't even process what they just saw, a boss lizard, gone in a single blow. But the threats keep coming as a pack of level 40 mudgastramists swarms the area. Suddenly, a knight on horseback charges through the flock, swinging a massive axe. He cleaves through the bird monsters with ease, his weapon glowing with a fierce red light. As the last of the birds fall, the rider approaches Alan and asks if he's the famous crafter. The warrior introduces himself as Gordo, captain of the Royal Guard. Turns out, Lady Olivia sent him personally to escort Alan and his party. Alan tries to check the captain's stats, but everything comes up as hidden. Gordo motions toward an ornate carriage waiting nearby for their departure. Flynn is losing his mind over how fancy the ride is, realizing they're getting some top-tier treatment. Gordo admits the city's finances are trashed because of the endless war with the Demon King's army. Olivia is betting big that Alan's advanced weapons can finally break the stalemate. Alan just takes it in, realizing he's carrying the weight of a whole kingdom's hopes. He heads toward the carriage, resolved to meet those massive expectations. But he's also wary of the Demon King Preservation faction that's been stalking him from the shadows. Meanwhile, over at the Adventurers Guild headquarters, a high-level meeting is already underway. Zaynid, a guild executive, reviews the reports of Alan wiping out 5 assassins in the wasteland. He looks stern, clearly concerned about the sudden rise of this mysterious crafter. The idea of these guns being the only weapons of their kind makes Alan a wild card they can't ignore. Thinking about Alan's recent feats, Zaynid worries the kid is going to become a massive obstacle for their plans. Just then, the door creaks open as a flamboyant figure steps into the room. It's Mr. Hiroshi, a level 175 crafter, arriving with a young apprentice. Zaynid is disappointed because he was expecting the legendary blacksmith Benjamin, not some kid. The girl introduces herself as Annette, Benjamin's daughter, and a level 13 blacksmith. She's not shy about it either, claiming her technical knowledge is every bit as good as her father's. Since Benjamin vouched for her, Zaynid decides to let it slide and get to work. They take their seats to start the analysis on the piece of tech Alan left behind. Zaynid places one of the crafted rifles on the table, asking them to tear down its structure. Hiroshi and Annette are fascinated by the strange shape, noting it looks way different than the footage. Hiroshi picks up the assault rifle, and its stats pop up a powerful weapon with an automatic reload system. He figures out the trigger mechanism is like a crossbow and suggests they take it for a test drive. Hiroshi lets loose with the rifle, and the sheer rate of fire is unlike anything they've ever seen in this world. He's practically giggling as he watches the destruction, completely floored by how fast the thing can spit out lead. Annette is just as stunned, doing the math on the raw attack power and wondering what kind of monster could have built this. Hiroshi admits that even with his top-tier level, he wouldn't know where to start in making something so advanced. Zaynid drops the bombshell. The crafter behind it was only level 15 when he put this together. The two experts can't believe their ears, thinking there's no way a beginner could pull off such a feat. But Zaynid is dead serious. And that's exactly why he's bringing in the big guns to crack the code. He orders them to strip the weapon down and figure out the blueprints, even if their version isn't quite as polished. Since a weapon's base power is tied to the creator's level, they know a duplicate made by a master would be terrifying. Annette realizes that if a pro like Hiroshi makes a copy, it'll be 10 times more lethal than the original. Hiroshi gives a creepy grin, clearly excited by the challenge of reverse engineering such a game-changing tool. Zaynid's plan is coming together. He's going to build a whole army of crafters to mass-produce these weapons. And as for Alan, Zaynid's already decided the kid's too dangerous to leave alive once he's outlived his usefulness. We start at the Lord's Manor, in the territory of Vyandal. Inside the grand audience chamber, a group of travelers waits for an audience. Sitting on her throne, the Lord thanks them for making the long trip to see her. She introduces herself as Olivia, the ruler of this land. Alan keeps it professional, thanking her for taking the time to meet. Beside him, Hina panics and whispers for him to use more formal language. Olivia just laughs it off, not minding the casual tone. Alan gets straight to the point, asking where he should start distributing the weapons. But Olivia wants to know more about these guns first to make sure they're safe. Alan doesn't waste time and summons one right there in the hall. He holds up the rifle, simply stating that this is what they're dealing with. The guards in the room can't believe what they're seeing. One of the men steps forward to help with the demonstration. Alan takes a stance, explaining that despite the different types, they all work the same way. He pulls the trigger, and a hail of energy bullets shreds the target's armor. The man is terrified, but Alan explains he was just showing off how easy it is to aim. Olivia is impressed, especially when Alan reveals he set the weapon to deal 0 damage to humans. He shows how firing from the walls will keep their people safe from the monsters. Hina tentatively raises her hand to ask a question. She wonders why the civilians have to be involved in the fighting at all. In her mind, the professional soldiers should be enough to handle the defense. Olivia explains that the real problem is the sheer cost of keeping those mercenaries around. Since they have to stay prepared for monster attacks 24/7, the bills never stop coming. The city's finances are being drained dry just to maintain its standing army. Alan breaks it down for Hina. They're basically broke from hiring too many people. Olivia says that with these guns, they can defend the city without going bankrupt. Naoki steps in to explain what pressing issue means to the confused girl. Hina is totally enamored by how smart and capable Alan is. Even Naoki is impressed, which just makes Alan tell them both to pipe down. Alan ends the small talk, wanting to get started on crafting his next batch of 99 weapons. Olivia agrees and tells them to head over to the distribution point in the plaza. Alan hands over the rifle he summoned as a personal gift for the Lord. She accepts it, thanking him for the gesture. The long-haired man behind her, Gordeau, keeps a suspicious eye on the group. A soldier leads Alan and his friends out of the chamber toward the plaza. Left alone, Olivia pulls up the weapon's status screen to check its stats. She asks Gordeau what he thinks of the potential of such a device. She mentions that even the guild executives are starting to panic over this. Gordeau notes that the weapon's power is directly tied to the stats of the person who made it. Olivia realizes that at level 28, Alan is already incredibly dangerous. She wonders if he could actually be the vessel destined to bring down the Demon Lord. Gordeau agrees, believing there's a very strong possibility he is. Olivia smiles to herself, confident that bringing Alan into the fold was the smartest move she's made yet. Meanwhile, a massive crowd gathers in the central plaza for the weapon distribution. One of the locals holds up a launcher, looking completely unconvinced that a tube like this can actually be a weapon. Crates of these devices are lined up, and while the stats are impressive, the people are still nervous about using them. Elsewhere, the crew takes a quick break at a tavern to grab some food and refuel. Alan's multitasking is on another level, as he manages to craft items with one hand while eating pizza with the other. For him, distributing gear to the masses is just another day at the office. Hina eventually speaks up, asking Alan why he doesn't wear any accessories to boost his power. She explains that better stats for him would mean even stronger weapons for everyone else. Alan looks indifferent. He's sitting at level 28 and hasn't really bothered with min-maxing his gear. Naoki is a bit jealous, wishing he was strong enough to just ignore equipment like that. Hina gets right in Alan's face, blushing as she gushes about how his raw strength is all he needs. But Alan is actually thinking about the practical side, specifically defensive gear that can block things like poison or confusion. He knows this isn't a game if he dies. There's no loading a save file, so he needs to start taking armor seriously. The peaceful lunch ends abruptly when a soldier bursts in, making Naoki spit out his drink. The guard is in a total panic, shouting that a disaster is unfolding. He drops the bombshell. The Demon Lord's army is finally making its move. Looking out from the walls, it's a nightmare scenario. A massive horde of monsters is swarming toward the city. Alan stands on the city walls with the villagers, everyone geared up and ready for what's coming. A group of elite mercenaries watching from the side can't help but laugh, wondering why a bunch of civilians are even there. They're completely baffled by the weird-looking metal tubes the villagers are carrying. Ignoring the skeptics, Alan gives a quick demo on how to shoulder the weapon and pull the trigger. Hina and the rest of the crew are practically vibrating with excitement to start shooting, but Alan tells them to keep a steady hand. A mercenary witch just rolls her eyes, blowing a puff of smoke and wondering which pathetic clan these guys crawled out of. Hina's eyes go wide when she realizes the people watching them are from the Holy Guardian, a world-famous elite clan. The mercenaries aren't impressed, figuring that if they've been sent to a backwater village like this, they must be the clan's bottom feeders. Alan doesn't let the chatter distract him. He's a level 28 crafter with a job to do. He shifts his gaze to the horizon as the enemy finally comes into view. It's the Demon King's remnant, a massive army of monsters that look to be around level 50. The Holy Guardian captain draws his sword and shouts for everyone to prepare their ranged attacks. On the wall, the residents take their positions, gripping their tubes with white-knuckled focus. The captain gives the signal, and with a deafening roar, he orders everyone to fire. A massive volley of rockets streaks across the sky toward the approaching horde. The impact is absolute chaos, with fireballs ripping through the monster ranks and lighting up the battlefield. Hina and her partner are nearly choked by the smoke, but they're grinning at the sheer power they just unleashed. Alan watches as his experience bar hits the limit, officially reaching level 30. The captain is frozen in shock, sweat dripping down his face as he stares at the devastation. In just one instant, half of the entire enemy army has been wiped off the map. The villagers are already eager for more, so Alan tells them to hold on while he reloads. Once the weapons are ready, Alan gives the green light to give the monsters another taste of their own medicine. Another round of explosions rocks the field, and the villagers' fear has completely vanished. The watching mercenaries are speechless, unable to process the total destruction unfolding right in front of them. The captain realizes he's seeing a turning point in warfare. The power of these weapons is terrifying. Alan snaps him out of it, reporting that the stragglers who survived the blast are starting to close in. With the horde thinned out, the battlefield is a mess of smoke and scrambling monsters. The captain orders the residents to fall back, telling them the professionals will handle the cleanup. He calls for the archers to step up and finish off the remaining monsters. The mercenaries realize they won't even get a turn in the fight, acknowledging that Alan isn't just for show. A single gauntleted fist is raised into the air as the last of the enemies fall. The captain cheers at the top of his lungs, announcing that the battle is over and they've won. The village walls erupt in celebration, with everyone hailing Alan's weapons for ending the fight in a flash. Hina approaches Alan and notices he looks more annoyed than happy. He feels like he wasted a huge chance to farm more XP. She's surprised he's complaining, considering he just jumped 2 levels and hit level 30. Alan explains that with that many kills, he should have gone up 10 levels if it wasn't for the system's hard cap. Hina reminds him that to go any higher, he'll have to take the beginner trial at the royal capital. That's the rule of the world. Level 30 is the ceiling unless you pass the guild's test in the city. Looking at all the drops left behind, Alan knows another opportunity like this won't happen again soon. The mood shifts when Olivia arrives on the wall, clapping and congratulating Alan on his performance. The mercenaries are immediately distracted by how good she looks, earning them a sharp rebuke from the witch. Olivia admits she wanted to see the guns in action herself, but was shocked to find out the battle was already over. Olivia points out that the gear Alan is handing out is different from what he gave her earlier. Alan explains he specialized these for area of effect damage to handle the massive horde they were facing. Looking at the townspeople, Olivia notes that, thanks to him, regular residents can now defend the village. She makes a cold business move, announcing she's terminating the contracts of every defense clan except for the Holy Guardian. The news hits the local mercenaries hard, leaving them completely stunned as their source of income vanishes. To the Holy Guardian elite, she offers a deal she'll triple their fee, but it will now serve as a payment for using Alan's weapons. While the villagers celebrate the major contract, Alan stays focused on the next steps. The discarded clan leader begs her to reconsider, saying they won't survive without the town's support. Olivia doesn't show a shred of sympathy, coldly asking what their survival has to do with the safety of the village. She continues, saying the town has sacrificed far too much just to keep these redundant defense clans on the payroll. As she moves on, the social rift becomes clear the residents have no love left for the mercenaries. Naoki scoffs, calling the fired fighters good-for-nothings who were only hired out of necessity. The townspeople join in, jeering at the mercenaries and calling them tax thieves as they tell them to get lost. Olivia gives a dismissive wave over her shoulder, completely finished with the group. As an apology, she adds that the village will at least cover their teleportation costs to get them on their way. The discarded clan leader stands there trembling with rage, seething over the humiliation. Seeing the fallout, Hina and her partner feel a bit guilty, wondering if they just put a bunch of people out of work. Olivia notices their hesitation and tells them point blank that there's no reason for them to feel bad about it. She looks around at the town, where for the first time in a long while, the residents actually look like they've found peace. She tells Alan he should be proud, as he's the one who brought smiles back to these people's faces. With a rare smile, she encourages him to keep it up and deliver that same hope to other towns fighting the Demon King. Hina and the other adventurers are re-energized, ready to keep moving forward after the successful defense. But the disgruntled clan leader is watching from the shadows, realizing that if these weapons spread, his profession is dead. Alan starts heading off, already thinking about the royal capital and the beginner trial he needs to pass. He doesn't notice the mercenary leader stalking him from behind, blaming the crafter for everything he's lost. The guy calls out to him, acting like he just wants to ask a question about the new weapon. But as soon as Alan turns his back, the man lunges forward and delivers a brutal kick. Olivia's expression shifts as she realizes something has gone horribly wrong on the wall. Alan plummets from the wall, the ground rushing up to meet him as he loses his grip on everything. The discarded clan leader watches him fall with a twisted grin, telling him to just die and stay out of his business.